When Lewis Hamilton walked through the airport after his biggest win, he had no idea his entire world was about to shatter. The famous race car driver was tired but happy, ready for a peaceful vacation. Then he saw her, Imani, the woman he loved and lost 5 years ago. But Lewis's feet stopped moving when he noticed something that made his heart nearly stop beating. 2 small children stood beside Imani, holding her hands. A boy and a girl, about 4 years old. And they looked exactly like him. Same dimpled smile, same nose, same curly hair. Lewis stared in shock as the little boy wore a tiny Mercedes racing jacket, the same team Lewis drove for. His mind raced with impossible questions. Were these children his? How could they be? He hadn't seen Imani in 5 years. The little girl looked up and her eyes met Lewis's across the crowded terminal. For 3 seconds, time stopped. Then Imani saw him too, and the color drained from her face. She grabbed both children's hands and started walking away fast, almost running. Lewis tried to call out, but his voice wouldn't work. He watched as his possible son and daughter disappeared around a corner, and suddenly, nothing in his successful life made sense anymore. What secret had Imani been keeping for 5 years? Why did those children look exactly like him? And what would Lewis do now that he'd seen them? Watch the whole video to find out how this impossible situation unfolds, and whether Lewis ever discovers the truth about the twins who changed everything. Lewis Hamilton's shoes squeaked against the polished marble floor of Heathrow Airport's private terminal. His body ached in that good way, the way that came after pushing a race car to its absolute limit and winning. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix trophy was being shipped separately, but the victory still hummed through his veins like electricity. "Mr. Hamilton, your jet is ready," his security guard James said from beside him. "We can board whenever you're ready." Lewis nodded, barely hearing him. His mind was already on the beach in Barbados, the quiet villa where no one would bother him for 2 whole weeks. No reporters, no cameras, no pressure, just him, the ocean, and absolutely nothing to do. He adjusted his backpack and scanned the departure lounge out of habit, looking for anyone who might recognize him. Even in the private terminal, fans sometimes slipped through. His eyes moved across the space, businessmen on laptops, a family with excited children, flight attendants rushing past. Then he saw her. His feet stopped moving. Just stopped, like someone had pressed a pause button on his entire body. Imani. Imani Clark stood 50 feet away near Gate 7, her back partially turned to him. But Lewis would recognize that silhouette anywhere. The graceful curve of her shoulders, the way she stood with one hip slightly out, the cascade of braids falling down her back. 5 years vanished in an instant. His heart hammered against his ribs so hard he wondered if James could hear it. She wore a simple blue sundress and white sneakers. She looked exactly the same. No, she looked even more beautiful, if that was possible. More confident somehow, more herself. Lewis's mouth went dry. No, his hands started to sweat. 1,000 memories crashed over him like a wave. Imani laughing at his terrible jokes. Imani falling asleep on his shoulder during a movie. Imani telling him she couldn't do this anymore. Imani walking out of his life and taking all the color with her. "Sir, are you all right?" James asked, concern creeping into his professional tone. Lewis couldn't answer, because Imani had shifted slightly, and now he could see who stood beside her. 2 children, 2 small children, holding her hands on either side. Lewis's vision tunneled. Sound faded away. Everything disappeared except those 2 little people standing next to the woman he'd never stopped loving. A boy and a girl. maybe 4 years old, possibly 5. But the boy wore tiny jeans and a miniature Mercedes racing jacket, the same jacket Lewis's team sold in their official store. The girl had her hair in 2 puff ponytails tied with yellow ribbons, and she clutched a stuffed dolphin against her chest. They were beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And they looked exactly like him. Lewis's breath caught in his throat. His chest tightened so much he thought he might be having a heart attack. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. The boy said something to Imani, pointing at a plane visible through the massive windows. Imani bent down to his level, smiling, explaining something. When she smiled, the little girl smiled too, and Lewis saw it, that unmistakable dimple in her left cheek. His dimple. The one his mother always said made him look mischievous. The boy turned slightly, laughing at whatever Imani had said, and Lewis saw his profile. His nose. That was Lewis's nose. His jawline. His exact shade of brown skin. "Oh my God," Lewis whispered. The words came out broken, barely audible. The little girl had Imani's warm brown eyes. Yes, but her forehead. That was Lewis's forehead. Her chin. Her ears. Even from this distance, Lewis could see the way her curly hair coiled exactly like his did before he cut it short. His legs felt weak. The expensive backpack slid off his shoulder and hit the floor with a thud he didn't hear. James said something else, but the words were just noise, meaningless sounds that couldn't penetrate the roaring in Lewis's ears. Were those children his? The question exploded in his mind like fireworks, bright and terrifying and impossible to ignore. 5 years. Imani left him 5 years ago, and the children looked about 4, maybe freshly 5 years old. The math crashed into him like a race car hitting a wall. The boy tugged on Imani's hand, bouncing with excitement about something. She laughed. That laugh Lewis used to live for, the one that sounded like music and sunshine and home. She ruffled the boy's curly hair, and the gesture was so tender, so full of love, that Lewis felt his eyes burn with tears he couldn't afford to shed here, in public, where anyone might see. The little girl noticed something on the floor, a dropped toy from another child, and picked it up carefully. She walked it over to a toddler a few feet away and handed it to the mother with a shy smile. Polite, thoughtful, kind, just like Imani always was, but with Lewis's face. "Sir, we really need to board," James said, his hand gentle on Lewis's elbow. The flight crew is waiting." Lewis jerked his arm away without meaning to, never taking his eyes off the children. Not yet. He needed to see them more clearly. He needed to be sure. He took a step forward, then another. His heart pounded so loudly, he was certain everyone in the terminal could hear it. His hands trembled. His mouth felt like sandpaper. 30 feet away now. The boy said something that made his sister giggle. They had a connection, these two. A twin connection, maybe. They moved in sync, like 2 halves of one whole. The boy grabbed his sister's hand and spun her around, and she squealed with delight, her dolphin flying through the air, 20 feet away. Lewis could see details now. The boy had a small scar above his right eyebrow, from a fall, probably. The girl wore tiny silver earrings shaped like stars. They both had backpacks decorated with sea creatures, turtles, whales, octopi. Imani's influence. She'd always loved the ocean, dedicated her whole career to protecting it. Had she been raising their children alone while he raced around the world, collecting trophies and sponsorships and hollow victories that meant nothing compared to this? 15 feet away. The little girl looked up suddenly, her eyes sweeping across the terminal. For one heart-stopping second, her gaze landed on Lewis. She stared at him with those big brown eyes, Imani's eyes in Louis's face, and tilted her head slightly, like she recognized something but couldn't quite place what. Louis froze completely. His breath stopped. Time stopped. The girl tugged on Imani's dress. "Mummy," she said, her voice high and sweet and perfect. "Mummy, that man is staring at us." Imani looked up. Their eyes met across the terminal. The color drained from Imani's face so fast, Louis thought she might faint. Her mouth opened slightly. Her eyes went wide with shock, then fear, then something else. Something Louis couldn't read, but felt all the way down to his bones. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, they just stared at each other. 5 years of silence, 5 years of questions, 5 years of missing her so badly it physically hurt. All of it hung in the air between them like smoke. Imani's hand flew to her mouth. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, like she couldn't catch her breath. The children looked between their mother and the strange man staring at them, confusion crossing their identical faces. "Mummy?" the boy asked. "What's wrong? Why do you look scared?" Imani broke eye contact with Louis and looked down at her children. Whatever she saw in their worried faces seemed to snap her out of her shock. Her expression hardened. That wall Louis remembered, the one she'd built brick by brick during their final months together, slammed back into place. She grabbed both children's hands firmly. "Come on, babies," she said, her voice tight and too bright. "We need to go to our gate now, right now." "But, Mummy, you said we had time," the boy started. "Now, Malek," Imani said sharply. Malek. His son's name was Malek. "Mummy, you're hurting my hand," the little girl whimpered. Imani loosened her grip but didn't let go. "Sorry, Zara. I'm sorry, baby. We just need to move quickly, okay?" Zara. His daughter's name was Zara. Louis's lips formed their names silently. Malek. Zara. You're his children. He had children. 2 beautiful, perfect children who existed in the world, who laughed and played and said "mummy" in sweet voices, and he'd known nothing about them. Imani started walking fast, pulling the twins toward a different gate, away from Louis, away from the truth that was written all over their faces. "Wait," Louis called out. His voice cracked. "Imani, wait." She walked faster, almost running now. Malik looked back over his shoulder at Louis, his little forehead wrinkled with confusion. Zara stumbled, trying to keep up with her mother's frantic pace, her stuffed dolphin dragging on the floor. "Imani!" Louis shouted, louder this time. Several people turned to look. A woman near him gasped. She'd recognized him. Her phone came out. Others followed suit. Louis didn't care. Let them record this. I'd let them post it everywhere. None of it mattered. "Please," he called out, desperation bleeding into his voice. "Please, just wait. I need to talk to you." Imani stopped walking. Her back was to him, her shoulders rigid and trembling. The children looked up at her with wide, worried eyes. Louis could see Zara's little hand clutching her mother's dress, seeking comfort. For a moment, Louis thought Imani might turn around, might face him, might explain how he had 2 children he'd never met. 2 pieces of himself walking around in the world without him. Instead, she bent down and whispered something to the twins. They nodded, glancing back at Louis one more time with their father's eyes, their father's nose, their father's dimpled smiles that they weren't using right now because they were scared. Then Imani stood up and walked away, and taking Malik and Zara with her. They disappeared around a corner toward the international gates, and Louis stood frozen in the middle of the private terminal, his whole world shattered and rebuilt in the space of 3 minutes. "Mr. Hamilton?" James's voice came from somewhere far away. "Sir, People are taking photos. We should go. Louis looked down at his hands. They were shaking violently. His chest felt too tight, like he couldn't get enough air. His mind raced with impossible thoughts, each one more overwhelming than the last. He had children, twins, a son who wore his racing jacket, and a daughter who carried a stuffed dolphin like her mother had carried her passion for the ocean. They looked about 4 years old, which meant Imani had been pregnant when she left him, or got pregnant right before, or right after, and which meant she'd known and hadn't told him, had raised them alone for 4 years, maybe 5, while he lived his life completely unaware that he was a father. A father. Louis was someone's dad, and he'd missed everything. First steps, first words, first birthdays, first days of school, everything. The burning in his eyes finally overflowed. Tears ran down Louis's cheeks, and he didn't wipe them away. Around him, phones captured every moment, but Louis couldn't make himself care. His PR team would have a nightmare tomorrow. Headlines would scream across every tabloid. None of it mattered. "We need to go, sir," James said firmly, physically turning Louis toward their gate. "Now." Louis let himself be guided away. His legs moved on autopilot while his brain tried to process the impossible. And as they walked toward his private jet, toward the vacation he no longer wanted, toward the life that suddenly felt meaningless, Louis made a decision. He was going to find Imani Clark. He was going to get answers. And he was going to meet his children properly. Look them in their eyes that were half him and half the woman he'd never stopped loving, and figure out how to be the father they deserved, even if it meant burning his whole carefully constructed world to the ground. Louis couldn't sleep on the plane. He sat in the leather seat, staring out at the clouds below, seeing nothing but Malik's confused face and Zara's frightened eyes. His phone buzzed constantly with texts from his team, his publicist, his friends. Everyone wanted to know about the airport incident already going viral online. He ignored them all. Instead, Louis closed his eyes and let himself remember. Let himself go back 5 years to when everything fell apart. Back to when he lost Imani and didn't even know he was losing so much more. 5 years and 5 months ago. London. The charity gala was boring. Louis hated these events. Rich people in expensive clothes, pretending to care about causes while really just networking and being seen. He stood near the bar, nursing a drink he didn't want, counting the minutes until he could leave without offending the sponsors. Then she walked onto the stage. Imani Clark wasn't famous. She wasn't a model or an actress or anyone Louis would normally meet at these events. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost a fraction of what the other women had spent. Her braids were pulled back into a professional bun. She carried a laptop and looked nervous. "Good evening," she said into the microphone, her voice shaking slightly. "My name is Imani Clark, and I'm a marine biologist with the Ocean Conservation Alliance. I'm here tonight to talk about something most people don't think about: the sea turtles dying because of our plastic waste." For the next 20 minutes, Imani showed pictures and graphs and data. She talked about turtle hatchlings eating plastic bags, thinking they were jellyfish, about coral reefs dying, about the ocean acidifying and what that meant for every living thing on the planet. But what captivated Louis wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Imani spoke with passion that couldn't be faked. Her eyes shone when she talked about diving with sea turtles. Her voice broke when she showed pictures of dead baby turtles with stomachs full of bottle caps and straws. She cared. Really, genuinely cared about something bigger than herself. When she finished, the room gave polite applause. Most people immediately went back to their conversations and champagne. But Lewis walked straight to the side of the stage where Imani was packing up her laptop. "That was incredible," he said. Imani looked up, startled. Her eyes widened when she recognized him. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Hamilton." "Lewis, please. Just Lewis." He smiled. "I mean it. That presentation. I've been to 100 of these charity things and I've never paid attention to a single speech. But you made me care about sea turtles." Imani laughed, and the sound made something warm bloom in Lewis's chest. "Well, that's my job. Making people care." "Can I buy you a drink? I want to hear more." She hesitated, glancing at the crowd of wealthy people who definitely weren't interested in actual conversation about ocean conservation. "Okay, yes, I'd like that." They talked for 3 hours. Imani told him about studying marine biology, about her research trips to Costa Rica and Australia, about her dreams of opening a sea turtle sanctuary. Lewis told her about racing, but also about the pressure, the loneliness, the weird emptiness of winning everything and still feeling like something was missing. "You're not what I expected," Imani admitted as the gala wound down. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more full of himself? You're famous and rich and successful. Most people like that are pretty insufferable." Lewis laughed. "Give me time, and I might still be insufferable." "Maybe," Imani said, smiling. "But I don't think so." He drove her home that night. She lived in a tiny flat near the research lab, nothing fancy. Before she got out of the car, Lewis asked, "Can I see you again? Properly? Like a date?" Imani bit her lip, considering. "I don't usually date people in the public eye. It's complicated." "I'll make it uncomplicated," Lewis promised. "Just dinner, somewhere quiet, no cameras." She said yes. 5 years and 4 months ago, they fell in love quickly. Too quickly, maybe. But Lewis couldn't help it. Imani made him feel normal for the first time in years. When he was with her, he wasn't Lewis Hamilton the champion. He was just Lewis, a man learning about ocean currents and coral spawning cycles, and why protecting marine ecosystems mattered more than any trophy. Imani took him diving off the Cornwall coast. Underwater, in the quiet blue world, Lewis felt peace he'd never experienced. Imani pointed out fish and sea plants, her excitement contagious even through the diving masks. Afterwards, sitting on the beach wrapped in towels, she said, "You're good at this, being present. A lot of people can't just be in the moment." "I'm only good at it with you," Lewis admitted. "You make everything else disappear." She kissed him, salt water on both their lips, and Lewis thought, "This is it. This is the person I'm supposed to be with forever." He started traveling less between races, spent every free moment with Imani. His team noticed. His performance didn't suffer. He was still winning, but his focus had shifted. He had something to come home to now, someone who mattered more than podiums. Imani met his family. His mom loved her immediately. "She's good for you," she told Lewis privately. "She keeps you grounded." Lewis knew she was right. He started thinking about proposing, about what life after racing might look like, about building something permanent with someone who saw him, really saw him, not just the driver or the celebrity, but the man underneath. 5 years ago, the beginning of the end. The problems started small. A photographer caught them leaving a restaurant. The photos went viral. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about Lewis Hamilton's mysterious new girlfriend. Reporters showed up at Imani's research lab. They called her colleagues, asking questions. Paparazzi followed her to the grocery store, to her gym, to her favorite coffee shop. Her quiet, private life evaporated overnight. I can't do this," she told Lewis, after a particularly bad day. Someone had published her home address online. Fans and photographers camped outside her building. "I have work to do, Lewis. Real work. I can't focus when there are cameras in my face every time I leave my flat." "I'll hire security," Lewis said. "I'll make them leave you alone." "You can't make them leave me alone. That's not how this works." Imani's voice was tired. "This is your life. I knew that when we started dating. But I didn't understand what it would really mean. I didn't understand that I'd lose my privacy, my peace, my ability to just exist normally." They fought about it. Lewis said she was overreacting. Imani said he was dismissing her feelings. They made up, but the tension remained, a crack in their foundation that kept widening. And then Lewis's racing season intensified. He was fighting for his 8th World Championship. The competition was fierce. The travel schedule was brutal. 3 weeks on the road, 2 days home, then gone again. "I miss you," Imani said during a video call from Japan. "I feel like I never see you anymore." "I know, baby. I know. Just a few more months. After the season ends, we'll have time." But a few more months felt like forever. They started arguing more about his schedule, about the media attention, about what their future looked like. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in October. Lewis had just returned from Brazil, exhausted and jet-lagged. He had 3 days home before leaving for Mexico. Imani wanted to spend the evening together, just the two of them, reconnecting. But Lewis's phone wouldn't stop ringing. His team needed him for sponsor meetings. His publicist had scheduled 3 interviews. His trainer insisted they couldn't skip conditioning sessions. "Can't you just say no?" Imani asked, frustration bleeding through. "Can't you just be here, fully present for one evening?" "This is my job, Imani. This is how I make a living. You have more money than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. This isn't about making a living. This is about you choosing racing over everything else, over us." Lewis felt his own frustration rising. "That's not fair. You knew who I was when we started dating. You knew racing was important to me." "Important, yes. But is it more important than me? Than us? Than having an actual life outside of cars and tracks and trophies?" "Right now? Yes." The words exploded out of Lewis before he could stop them. "Yes, okay? Right now, racing has to come first. I'm going for my 8th championship. Do you understand how important that is? I can't afford distractions." The silence that followed was horrible. "Distractions," Imani repeated quietly. "I'm a distraction." Lewis knew immediately he'd said the wrong thing. "That's not what I meant." "No, it's exactly what you meant." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "I'm something that pulls your focus away from what really matters. Your career, your legacy, your precious championship." "Imani, please." "I can't do this, Lewis. I can't be with someone who sees me as an obstacle instead of a partner. I can't build a life with someone who will always put racing first." She started gathering her things, her toothbrush from the bathroom, her clothes from his closet, the book she'd been reading on his nightstand. "Don't do this," Lewis said, panic rising in his chest. "Don't leave. We can figure this out." "Can we?" Imani turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "Because from where I'm standing, you've already made your choice. You choose racing. Every time. And I can't compete with that. I won't. So, that's it? You're just giving up?" "I'm not giving up," Imani said, her voice breaking. "I'm accepting reality. You love racing more than you could ever love me. And that's okay. That's your choice. But I deserve someone who chooses me back." She walked to the door, her bag slung over her shoulder. Lewis stood frozen. his pride and anger and fear all tangled up inside him. "If you walk out that door," he said, the words hard and cold, "don't come back." Imani looked at him one last time, her face devastated but determined. "Goodbye, Louis." She left. The door clicked shut behind her, and Louis stood in his empty penthouse, surrounded by racing trophies and photos of victories, and felt more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. He told himself he'd done the right thing. Racing had to come first. He was so close to making history. He couldn't let emotions derail everything he'd worked for. He threw himself into training, into racing, into winning. He broke records. He made headlines. He achieved everything he'd said was so important. And none of it filled the Imani-shaped hole in his heart. Louis opened his eyes, back in the present, on the plane to nowhere. His face was wet with tears he didn't remember crying. That night, that terrible Tuesday night, had been 5 years and 2 months ago. Almost exactly. 2 months later, Yurika Imani must have discovered she was pregnant. Had she tried to tell him? Had he ignored her calls, too angry and hurt to answer? Had she seen him with someone else and assumed he'd moved on? Louis grabbed his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found her number. Still there after all these years. He'd never been able to delete it. His finger hovered over the call button. What would he say? What could he possibly say that would make up for 5 years of absence? For missing his children's entire lives? "Turn the plane around," Louis said to James suddenly. "Sir?" "Turn the plane around. We're not going to Barbados. I need to go to Cornwall." "Mr. Hamilton, we're already halfway there." "I don't care. Turn it around. Now." James pulled out his phone to contact the pilot. Louis looked out the window at the ocean below, Imani's ocean, the one she'd dedicated her life to protecting, and made a promise. He would find her. He would get answers. And somehow, some way, he would become the father Malik and Zara deserved. Even if Imani hated him. Even if his children didn't want him. Even if it meant admitting that the biggest mistake of his life wasn't losing a championship. It was letting Imani walk out that door. The plane landed back at Heathrow 6 hours after it had taken off. Louis hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. He'd spent the entire flight staring at his phone, at Imani's contact information, trying to find the courage to call her. He never did. What would he say? "Hey, sorry I didn't know about our kids for 5 years?" It sounded ridiculous even in his head. James arranged a car, and Louis climbed into the back seat, exhaustion pulling at his bones. But he couldn't rest. Not yet. Not until he had answers. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked. Louis hesitated. He didn't know where Imani lived, didn't know anything about her life now. 5 years was a long time. She could be anywhere. "Just drive," Louis said. "I need to make a phone call." He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he needed. Marcus Chen. Marcus was a private investigator Louis had used before. Discreet, professional, and most importantly, trustworthy. When you were famous, you needed people who understood the value of silence. Marcus answered on the second ring. "Louis Hamilton, it's been a while." "I need your help," Louis said, his voice rough. "I need you to find someone." "Who?" "Imani Clark. She's a marine biologist. We used to date 5 years ago." "Okay," Marcus said slowly. "And you need to find her, because—" Louis's throat tightened. Saying it out loud would make it real. Make it true. Make it something he could no longer deny or avoid. "Because I think she's been raising my children without telling me." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll need details. everything you know about her, last known address, job information, friends, family. I'll send you everything I have, Lewis interrupted. But Marcus, I need this fast, and I need it quiet. No one can know about this. Not yet. Understood. Give me 48 hours. Lewis hung up and spent the next hour typing out everything he remembered about Imani. Her favorite coffee shop in London, the research lab where she'd worked, her friend Destiny's name. They'd gone to university together, and the tiny flat near the Thames where she'd lived. It wasn't much. 5 years was a long time, and Lewis realized with shame how little he actually knew about Imani's life outside of their relationship. He'd been so focused on himself, on racing, that he'd never asked the deeper questions. Where did her family live? What were her dreams beyond marine biology? What did she want from life? He'd loved her, but had he really known her? The driver took Lewis to his London penthouse, the same penthouse where Imani had walked out 5 years ago. Lewis stood in the doorway, memories crashing over him. He could almost see her standing by the window, looking out at the city lights. Could almost hear her laugh echoing off the walls. He walked through the rooms that suddenly felt like a museum of his failures. Racing trophies lined the shelves, shiny proof of everything he'd achieved and everything he'd lost. Lewis picked up a photo from the mantel, himself on a podium, champagne spraying, his face split in a huge victory grin. The date on the frame, 3 weeks after Imani left. He'd won that race, set a new track record. The media had called it one of his greatest performances. He didn't remember it bringing him any joy. His phone buzzed. A text from his publicist. We need to talk about the airport incident. Photos everywhere. People asking questions. Call me. Lewis deleted the message without responding. Another text, this time from his mother. What's going on? Are you okay? Someone sent me photos of you crying at the airport. Please call me, sweetheart. Lewis's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to tell her. Wanted to say, Mom, I have children. You're a grandmother. There are 2 beautiful kids in the world who have your nose and your smile, and I've never even held them. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not until he knew for sure. Not until he understood what had happened and why Imani had kept this secret. He set the phone down and walked to his bedroom. He needed sleep. His body was screaming for it. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Malik's face, Zara's scared expression, Imani's pale shock. Hours passed. Lewis lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning in circles. Around midnight, his phone rang. Marcus. That was fast, Lewis said, sitting up. You're not going to like this, Marcus said carefully. But I found her. Lewis's heart slammed against his ribs. Where? Cornwall, small coastal town called Porthleven. She lives in a cottage about half a mile from the beach. Cornwall? Of course. Imani had always loved Cornwall. They'd gone there together once, and she'd talked about how peaceful it was, how the ocean felt different there, wilder, more honest. What else? Lewis asked. She runs her own small research foundation now. Ocean conservation work, mostly focused on local marine life. It's small, just her and 2 part-time assistants. Looks like she does a lot of educational programs with schools. Lewis closed his eyes, picturing it. Imani teaching children about the ocean, sharing her passion, making the next generation care about protecting the planet. It was exactly what she'd always wanted to do. And the children? His voice cracked on the word. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Twins, a boy and a girl. Their names are Malik and Zara Hamilton Clark. Lewis's breath caught. Hamilton Clark? She hyphenated their last names. Put your name second, but it's there. Birth certificates list mother as Imani Clark. Father is listed as unknown. Unknown? The word stabbed through Louis like a knife. He was their father, but legally, officially, he was unknown. Erased, as if he'd never existed. How old are they? Louis asked, even though he already knew. Needed to hear it confirmed. 4 years and 7 months. Born on March 15th, 5 years ago. Louis did the math in his head. March 15th, which meant Imani had gotten pregnant in early June 5 years ago, just weeks before their relationship started falling apart. She'd been pregnant during all those fights. Pregnant when the paparazzi were harassing her. And pregnant when Louis had called her a distraction and chosen racing over her. Pregnant when she walked out his door. Marcus, I need everything. Her address, her work schedule, everything about her life now. But quietly. No one can know I'm looking. Already done. Sending you a file now. But Louis... Marcus hesitated. Are you sure about this? If those are your kids, and she didn't tell you, there's a reason. Going in unprepared could make things worse. Worse than what? Louis asked bitterly. Worse than missing 4.5 years of my children's lives? Worse than them thinking they don't have a father? It can't get worse than this, Marcus. Just think about how you approach this. That's all I'm saying. You show up angry and demanding, she'll shut you out completely. You show up hurt and desperate, she might do the same. You need a strategy. I don't need a strategy. I need answers. Louis hung up before Marcus could argue further. His phone buzzed with an incoming file. He opened it with shaking hands. Photos. Marcus had included photos. The first one showed Imani's cottage, a small, whitewashed building with blue shutters and a garden full of flowers. It looked cozy, loved, like a home. The second photo showed Imani walking on the beach, a child holding each hand. Malik and Zara, bundled in colorful jackets, their hair wild in the wind. They were laughing at something, their faces bright with joy. The third photo nearly destroyed him. Malik sitting on Imani's lap, reading a book together. Zara asleep on the couch beside them, her dolphin clutched tight. A normal evening, a family moment. A moment Louis had never been part of. And he scrolled through more photos. The twins at a playground. Imani teaching them something on the beach. All three crouched down examining tide pools. Malik wearing his Mercedes jacket, the one Louis had seen at the airport. Zara carrying her dolphin everywhere, like it was her best friend. They looked happy, healthy, loved. They looked like they didn't need him. Louis threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, but didn't break. He put his head in his hands and tried to breathe through the pain crushing his chest. Imani had built a whole life without him. A beautiful life. She'd raised their children alone, given them everything they needed, created a home full of love and laughter and safety. And Louis had been completely absent from all of it. His phone buzzed again. Another message, probably from someone asking about the airport photos. Louis ignored it. He stood up, his decision made. He was going to Cornwall. Tonight. Right now. He couldn't wait 2 more days for Marcus's 48 hours. He couldn't spend another minute not knowing the truth. Louis grabbed his keys and wallet, didn't pack a bag, didn't tell anyone where he was going. He just walked out of his penthouse and got in his car, a simple black Range Rover, nothing flashy, and started driving west. The roads were empty at this hour. Louis pushed the speed limit, then exceeded it, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles ached. Rain started falling somewhere past Bristol, heavy drops that matched his mood. He thought about what he'd say to Imani, practiced conversations in his head. But every version ended the same way, with anger or accusations or demands that would only push her further away. Marcus was right. He needed to approach this carefully. But careful wasn't what Lewis felt. He felt desperate, frantic, like 5 years of his life had been stolen, and he'd only just realized it. The rain got heavier. Lewis drove through it, his wipers working overtime, his eyes focused on the dark road ahead. Hours passed. The night deepened. By the time he reached Cornwall, it was nearly 4 in the morning. He found Porthleven easily. It was a small town, the kind where everyone knew everyone. Imani's cottage was exactly where Marcus's file said it would be, perched on a hill overlooking the sea. Lewis parked across the street and killed the engine. Sat in the dark, rain drumming on the roof, staring at the house where his children slept. Lights were off, curtains drawn, everything peaceful and quiet. He could see a small plastic slide in the back garden, a sandbox covered with a tarp, 2 tiny bicycles with training wheels leaning against the side of the cottage, evidence of children. His children. Lewis's hand reached for the door handle. He could walk up right now. Knock. Demand answers. But what if he scared them? What if Zara woke up frightened? What if Malik cried? He couldn't do that to them. They were innocent in all this. They didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of whatever mess existed between him and Imani. Lewis pulled his hand back, sat in the car as dawn slowly lightened the sky, watched as lights eventually came on in the cottage, and saw shadows moving behind the curtains, Imani getting the twins ready for the day probably, making breakfast, living their normal life, a life that didn't include him. At 7:30, the front door opened. Imani stepped out first, then Malik and Zara, both wearing little backpacks. School. She was taking them to school. Lewis watched them pile into an old blue sedan, watched Imani buckle them carefully into car seats, watched her kiss each of their foreheads before closing the doors. She looked tired. Beautiful, but tired. Like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Because she did. She'd been carrying it alone for almost 5 years. Imani drove away. Lewis waited 5 minutes, then followed at a distance. Watched her drop the twins at a small primary school. Watched them hug her goodbye. He watched Malik run off to play with friends, while Zara walked more carefully, holding a teacher's hand. After Imani drove away, Lewis sat in his car outside the school, staring at the building where his children were learning and playing and growing up without him. His phone rang. Marcus again. "Tell me you didn't drive to Cornwall in the middle of the night," Marcus said. Lewis didn't answer. "Lewis, listen to me. You can't just show up there. You need to think this through. If those are your kids..." "They are my kids," Lewis said, his voice flat and certain. "I saw them up close at the airport. They have my face, Marcus, my dimples, my nose. They're mine." "Okay, fine. They're yours. Which means you need to be smart about this. You need to talk to Imani first, before you try to meet the kids. Work out." "I know," Lewis interrupted. I know. I'm not going to barge into their lives. I'm not going to traumatize them. I needed to see where they live. See that they're okay." "And are they? Okay?" Lewis thought about Malik's laughter, Zara's careful walk, the way they'd hugged their mother goodbye with such trust and love. "Yeah," he said quietly. "They're okay. They're happy." "Then go talk to Imani. Today. Now. Work this out like adults before it gets messier." Lewis nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see him. "Okay, I'll go to her work. Try to talk to her there. Good. And Louis? Don't go in angry. Go in honest. Louis hung up and pulled up the address for Imani's research foundation. It was in a small building near the harbor. Easy to find. He drove there slowly, his heart hammering, but parked outside and stared at the simple sign. Clark Marine Conservation Foundation. Her name, her dream, everything she'd always wanted, built from the ground up, without him. Louis got out of the car. The rain had stopped, leaving everything smelling clean and new. Seagulls called overhead. Waves crashed against the rocks nearby. He could hear Imani's voice in his memory. The ocean doesn't lie. It's honest and real. And if you respect it, it respects you back. Louis walked to the foundation's door, put his hand on the handle. This was it. The moment everything changed. Again. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The foundation was small inside, just one main room with a desk, filing cabinets, and walls covered in photos of sea creatures. A large tank in the corner held starfish and small crabs. Children's drawings of dolphins and turtles were pinned to a bulletin board. Imani stood at the desk with her back to the door, sorting through papers. She wore jeans and a blue sweater, her braids pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exactly like the woman Louis remembered, except for the tiredness in her shoulders. "We're not open yet," she said without turning around. "Office hours start at 9. Louis's throat closed up. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. Imani must have sensed something wrong because she turned around. When she saw him, every bit of color drained from her face. The papers in her hands scattered across the floor. "No," she whispered. "No, you can't be here." "Imani, get out." Her voice shook. Get out right now. I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about." Imani moved behind the desk like it could protect her. Her hands gripped the edge so tight her knuckles turned white. "You need to leave. Now." "Those children." Louis's voice cracked. "At the airport, Malik and Zara. Are they mine?" Imani's face crumpled. For a second, Louis thought she might cry. Then her expression hardened into something cold and distant. "You need to leave," she repeated. "Answer the question." Louis stepped closer. "Are they mine?" "That's none of your business." "None of my business?" Louis felt anger rising in his chest, hot and sharp. "If those are my children, it's absolutely my business." "You lost the right to that information 5 years ago," Imani shouted back, her composure cracking. "You made your choice. Racing came first. I was a distraction. Remember?" The words hit Louis like a punch, his own terrible words thrown back at him. "Imani? I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word. You looked me in the eye and told me your career mattered more than me, than us. So I left, and I built a life without you. A life that includes my children? They're my children." Imani's voice broke. "I carried them. I gave birth to them. I raised them alone for almost 5 years. I was there for every midnight feeding, every diaper change, every doctor's appointment, every first word, every scraped knee. Where were you?" "You never told me," Louis shouted. "How was I supposed to be there when you never told me they existed?" "I tried to tell you." The room went silent. Louis stared at her. "What?" Imani's hands shook. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I tried to tell you. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I left you. I was terrified, confused, but I called you 17 times that day. Do you remember answering?" Louis's stomach dropped. He remembered that day. It was 2 weeks after their breakup. He'd been in Monaco, preparing for the race. Imani's name had kept flashing on his phone, and he'd ignored every single call. "I was angry," he said weakly. "I thought you were calling to argue more." "I was calling to tell you that you were going to be a father," Imani screamed. "But you were too proud and stubborn to answer." Louis felt like the floor was tilting beneath him. "I didn't know. So I flew to Monaco." Imani's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I used money I didn't have to buy a last-minute ticket. I was going to tell you in person, but I went to that restaurant where you always ate before races, and I saw you." Louis's mind raced backward. That restaurant. He remembered. "The sponsored dinner," he breathed. "I saw you with a woman," Imani continued, her voice flat now, like she was reciting facts instead of speaking from pain. "A beautiful woman in an expensive dress. You were laughing, touching her hand across the table. You looked happy, happier than you'd looked with me in months. That was just a sponsor meeting. It wasn't. There was nothing." "I know that now," Imani said, "but I didn't know it then. I was 26 years old, pregnant with twins, heartbroken, and watching the man I loved look happy without me. So I left. I came back to England, and I decided." She trailed off, her face crumbling again. "You decided what?" Louis asked, his voice hoarse. I decided that you loved racing more than anything else in the world. That adding babies to your life would have destroyed everything you'd worked for. That you would have resented them. Resented me. And I couldn't bear the thought of my children growing up feeling like they were burdens to their father." Louis felt tears running down his own face now. "So you just cut me out completely?" "I gave you the life you wanted," Imani shouted. "The life you chose. You said racing had to come first, so I made sure it could. I made sure you never had to choose between championships and children. I protected your dreams by keeping them away from you. That wasn't your choice to make. You made it my choice when you called me a distraction." They stood there, both crying, both breathing hard, at the truth finally out in the open like a wound that had been infected for years. Louis wiped his face roughly. "I need to know. Are Malik and Zara mine? Biologically mine?" Imani looked at him for a long moment. Louis saw 5 years of exhaustion, sacrifice, and loneliness in her eyes. Saw the young woman who had faced pregnancy alone, who had given birth alone, who had raised 2 children without any help. "Yes," she finally whispered. "They're yours." Louis's knees nearly gave out. He gripped the edge of a chair to stay standing. "I want to meet them, properly. Not just seeing them at an airport. I want to know them." "No, you can't keep them from me." "I can, and I will." Imani's voice turned to steel. "They're happy, Louis. They have a good life. A safe life. It's away from cameras and media and people who only care about them because of who their father is." "I'm their father. I have rights." "You have no rights," Imani interrupted. "You're not on their birth certificates. You've never paid child support. You've never been involved in their lives in any way. Legally, you're nothing to them." The word "nothing" stabbed through Louis's heart. "I didn't know they existed. You can't punish me for something I didn't know." "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting them." "From what? From me? I would never hurt them. Not physically, no." Imani's voice softened, but stayed firm. "But your world would hurt them. The paparazzi, the tabloids, the pressure. Having every moment of their lives photographed and analyzed. That's not childhood. That's a nightmare. I can protect them from that. I have security. I saw what your world did to me, Louis. I lived it. I know what it feels like to have strangers know everything about you, to have photographers follow you to the bathroom, to have your privacy torn away completely. I will not let that happen to my babies. Our babies, Louis said desperately. They're our babies, Imani. Mine and yours. You can't just erase me from their lives. I already have. They don't know you. They think... She stopped, biting her lip. They think what? They think their father didn't want them, Imani said quietly. I never said that directly. But kids aren't stupid. They know other children have daddies. They've asked questions. And I've said that their daddy lived far away and couldn't be part of their lives. Louis felt something break inside his chest. So you told them I didn't want them? No, I never said that. I didn't know what else to say. How do you explain to 4-year-olds that their father doesn't know they exist? How do you tell them that mommy kept them secret? You tell them the truth. The truth is complicated and messy and would hurt everyone involved. Imani's voice rose again. The truth is that I made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. And maybe I made the wrong choice, but I made it out of love, out of wanting to protect everyone, you, them, me. I didn't want you to feel trapped. I didn't want them to feel unwanted, so I kept us separate. Louis walked to the window, looking out at the harbor. Boats bobbed in the water. The morning sun sparkled on the waves. It was beautiful here, peaceful, and he understood why Imani had chosen this place to raise their children. I saw them, he said quietly, this morning. I watched you take them to school. Imani's breath caught. You what? I drove here last night, sat outside your house, followed you to the school. I watched Malik run off to play. Watched Zara hold the teacher's hand. Louis turned to face her. They're beautiful, Imani. They look so happy. And it's killing me that I've missed everything, that I wasn't there. Louis, please. The word came out broken. Louis didn't care. Please let me meet them. Let me be part of their lives. I know I messed up. I know I was selfish and stupid, and I said terrible things. But I can change. I can be better. I can be the father they deserve. They don't need a father who shows up out of guilt. It's not guilt, and it's love. Louis moved closer, his voice urgent. I loved you, Imani. I loved you so much, and I was too stupid and scared to choose you over racing. But I would choose them. I would choose our children over anything, over everything. Please, please let me try. Imani stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Louis could see her wavering, see the part of her that wanted to believe him fighting against the part that was terrified of getting hurt again. If I say yes, she finally said, we do this my way, slowly, carefully, so we don't confuse them or scare them. Hope exploded in Louis's chest. Anything, whatever you want. And if at any point I think you're hurting them, emotionally, with the media attention, anything, you step back. No arguments, no lawyers, you just step back. Okay, yes, I promise. Imani wrapped her arms around herself, looking small and vulnerable and terrified. I need time to prepare them, to figure out what to tell them. You can't just show up and say, surprise, I'm your dad. I understand. Give me 2 days. I'll talk to them, prepare them. Then you can come to the house. Meet them properly. Louis nodded, not trusting his voice. But, Louis? Imani's voice hardened slightly. If you break their hearts, if you decide this is too hard and you leave, I will never forgive you. They're not toys you can play with when it's convenient. They're people. Small, vulnerable people who have already grown up without a father. Don't make them lose you twice. I won't, Louis promised. I swear on everything I am. I won't leave them. They stood in silence for a moment, on the weight of 5 years of secrets and pain hanging between them. "You should go," Imani finally said. I need time to think, to figure out how to do this." Louis nodded and walked toward the door. His hand was on the handle when he turned back. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything, for calling you a distraction, for not answering your calls, for not being there. I'm so sorry, Imani." Her face crumpled. "I'm sorry too, for keeping them from you, for making that decision alone. It wasn't fair to you, or to them. We were both trying to do what we thought was right." "Yeah," Imani whispered. "We were." Louis stepped outside into the bright Cornwall morning. The ocean air filled his lungs. Seagulls cried overhead. Somewhere in a small school building, his children were learning and playing, and not knowing their whole world was about to change. He climbed into his car and just sat there, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. In 2 days, he would meet his children. In 2 days, he would look Malik and Zara in the eyes and try to be the father they deserved. Louis pulled out his phone and called his publicist. "I need to clear my schedule," he said when she answered. "Everything for the next month. Cancel it all." "Louis, you have sponsor commitments, appearance fees. I don't care. Cancel everything. Something more important has come up." "More important than your career?" Louis looked at the foundation building, where Imani was probably crying behind that desk, carrying the weight she'd carried alone for so long. "Yes," he said. "So much more important." He hung up and drove back to his car. Back to wait. Go back to prepare himself for the most important meeting of his entire life. The meeting where he would finally become a father. Imani sat at her desk long after Louis left, staring at the scattered papers on the floor without really seeing them. Her hands trembled in her lap. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't get enough air. He knew. After 5 years of carefully guarded secrets, Louis knew about Malik and Zara. And in 2 days, she'd promised to let him meet them. "What have I done?" she whispered to the empty room. Imani stood on shaky legs and walked to the tank in the corner. The starfish clung to the glass, peaceful and unbothered. She wished she could feel that calm. Instead, her mind raced with 1,000 fears. What if Louis decided he wanted custody? He had money, so much money. He had lawyers, power, influence. She was just a single mother running a tiny conservation foundation. What chance would she have in court? What if the media found out and descended on their quiet life like locusts? What if Malik and Zara couldn't go to the playground anymore without cameras following them? What if Louis broke their hearts? That fear was the worst one. The one that made Imani's stomach twist into knots. Her children were everything. Their happiness, their safety, their innocent joy in simple things. It was all she had, all that mattered. And now she'd agreed to let a stranger into their lives, because that's what Louis was to them. A stranger who happened to share their DNA. Imani's phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. "Coffee this morning? Need to vent about Mark's mother again." Imani stared at the message. Destiny, her best friend since university, and the only person who knew the whole truth about Malik and Zara's father. The only person she could talk to about this. "Can you come to the foundation? Emergency. Need to talk." 3 minutes later. "On my way." Destiny arrived 15 minutes later, bursting through the door with 2 coffees and a bag of pastries. She was tall and loud, and wore bright yellow despite the gloomy weather. Everything about Destiny was vibrant and alive. "Okay, what's the emergency? Did the funding fall through again? Because I told you, My cousin knows someone at... Destiny stopped mid-sentence, seeing Imani's face. Oh no. What happened? He knows, Imani whispered. Who knows what? Louis. Louis knows about the twins. Destiny's mouth fell open. The pastry bag dropped to the floor. What? How? Imani told her everything. The airport encounter. Louis showing up at the foundation this morning. The confrontation. The agreement to let him meet Malik and Zara in 2 days. When she finished, Destiny was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Okay. This is big. But maybe it's not bad? Not bad. Imani's voice rose. Destiny, he could take them from me. He's not going to take them from you. No court would take nursing, well, not nursing anymore, but young kids from their mother, especially when you've been their only parent for 5 years. He has resources I don't have. Money for the best lawyers, connections. He's Lewis Hamilton. He's a man who just found out he's a father, Destiny interrupted gently. A man who looked devastated, from what you described, who begged you to let him meet his kids. That doesn't sound like someone planning to steal them away. That sounds like someone who wants to be a dad. Imani pressed her hands to her face. I'm so scared. Destiny pulled her into a hug. I know, honey. I know. But maybe this is a good thing? Those babies have been asking about their father more and more. Last week, Malik asked me why he didn't have a daddy when his friend Oliver does. It broke my heart. Imani had heard that question too. Many times, each one cut deeper than the last. What if Louis hurts them? She whispered into Destiny's shoulder. What if he decides being a father is too hard and leaves? What if they learn to love him and then he disappears? Then he's a bigger idiot than we thought, Destiny said firmly. But Imani, you can't protect them from everything. You can't keep them in a bubble forever. They deserve to know their father. And Louis deserves a chance to be a dad. Even after everything? Especially after everything. He made mistakes. You made mistakes. But those babies? They're innocent in all of this. They deserve the truth. Imani pulled back, wiping her eyes. I don't know what to tell them. How do I explain that their father exists and just didn't know about them? You tell them the truth, Destiny said. In a way they can understand. You tell them that mommy and daddy had grown-up problems that had nothing to do with them. That their daddy is a good man who would have been there if he'd known. That sometimes adults make mistakes, but love can fix things. What if love can't fix this? Then you deal with that if it happens. But you can't decide the ending before the story even starts. Imani spent the rest of the morning in a daze, going through the motions of work without really focusing. She answered emails, made phone calls about an upcoming school program, fed the starfish. Normal tasks that felt impossible today. At 3 o'clock, she left to pick up the twins from school. Her stomach twisted with anxiety the whole drive. How would she tell them? What words would she use? Malik burst out of the school doors first, his backpack bouncing, his face lit up with excitement. Mummy! Mummy! We learned about dolphins today. Did you know they sleep with one eye open? I did know that, Imani said, crouching down to hug him. Pretty cool, right? Zara emerged more slowly, holding her teacher's hand. When she saw Imani, she smiled. That shy, gentle smile that reminded Imani so much of herself at that age. Hi, baby, Imani said, hugging her daughter. Y'all good day? Zara nodded. I painted a picture of the ocean. Mrs. Robertson said it was beautiful. I bet it was. Can't wait to see it. They drove home with the twins chattering about their day. Malik had played superheroes at recess. Zara had helped a new student find the bathroom. Normal kid things. Beautiful, simple, normal things. Things that might change forever after tonight. At home, Imani made their favorite dinner: fish fingers, peas, and chips. The twins ate messily, getting ketchup everywhere, arguing about whose turn it was to choose the bedtime story. After dinner, Imani ran them a bath, watched them play with their toy boats, splashing water everywhere, giggling at nothing. They were so innocent, so perfect, so unaware that their whole world was about to shift. After bath time, she got them into pajamas. Malik's had race cars on them. He'd insisted on those specific pajamas last month at the store. Zara's had dolphins, naturally. "Story time," Malik announced, running to the bookshelf. "Actually," Imani said, her heart pounding, "Mommy needs to talk to you both about something first. Something important." The twins climbed onto the couch on either side of her, sensing the serious tone. Malik's eyes went wide. Zara grabbed her stuffed dolphin. "Am I in trouble?" Malik asked worriedly. "No, baby. Neither of you is in trouble." Imani took a deep breath. "Do you remember how you've asked me about your daddy?" Both children went very still. This was the question they'd asked dozens of times. The question that always made Mommy look sad. "Our daddy lives far away," Zara said carefully, repeating what Imani had always told them. "Well, that's partly true, but there's more to the story." Imani struggled to find the right words. "Your daddy, he didn't live close by, but the reason he wasn't here wasn't because he didn't want to be. It was because Mommy made a mistake." Malik's forehead wrinkled in confusion. "What mistake?" "I never told your daddy about you. When I found out I was going to have babies, have you two, your daddy and I weren't together anymore. We'd had an argument and stopped seeing each other. And I thought it would be better if I raised you by myself." "Why?" Zara asked, her voice small. "Because I was scared," Imani admitted, tears filling her eyes. "I was scared that your daddy was too busy with his important job to be a good father. I was scared that his job would make your life too complicated. So I kept you secret. I didn't tell him about you." The twins processed this in silence. Then Malik asked, "Does our daddy know about us now?" Imani nodded. "Yes, he found out by accident, and he's very, very happy you exist. He wants to meet you." "Really?" Malik's face lit up. "We have a daddy, and he wants to meet us?" "Yes, sweetie." "When?" Zara asked, gripping her dolphin tighter. "In 2 days. He's going to come here, to our house, and you can meet him properly." Malik jumped up, excitement radiating off him. "Is our daddy nice? What does he do? Does he like cars? Will he play with me?" Imani laughed through her tears. "He's very nice. And yes, he likes cars. He drives race cars for his job, actually." "Race cars?" Malik's eyes went huge. "Real race cars?" "Very real race cars. He's actually quite famous for it. So his name is Lewis Hamilton." The name clearly meant nothing to Zara, but Malik's mouth fell open. "Lewis Hamilton? The Lewis Hamilton? From TV? The fastest driver ever?" "Yes, baby. That Lewis Hamilton." But... Malik looked like his brain was short-circuiting. "He's on my pajamas and my jacket, and I watch him race on TV. He's my favorite driver in the whole world." Imani's heart squeezed. Of course he was. Malik had gravitated toward racing naturally, had obsessed over Lewis specifically, without knowing why. Some part of him had recognized his father, even without knowing the truth. "Mommy," Zara said quietly, while Malik bounced around the room. "Is Daddy going to take us away from you?" Imani pulled her daughter close. "No, baby, no. You're not going anywhere. This is your home. I'm your mother. That will never change. And your daddy just wants to be part of your life too. If that's okay with you." "What if he doesn't like me?" Zara whispered, voicing the fear that lived in every child who'd grown up without a parent. "He's going to love you," Imani promised, even though her own fears mirrored her daughter's. "Both of you. So much. You're his children. How could he not love you?" Malik stopped bouncing. "Mommy, are you sad?" "No, honey. I'm feeling a lot of feelings right now. But I'm not sad. I'm actually happy that you get to meet your daddy." It was partially true. Mixed in with all the fear and anxiety was a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. Hope that this could work. That Louis really would be the father Malik and Zara deserved. That her children would finally have what they'd always asked for. That night, putting the twins to bed was harder than usual. Malik kept asking questions about Louis, about racing, about what they'd do when he visited. Zara was quieter, more thoughtful, clutching her dolphin and watching Imani with worried eyes. "It's going to be okay," Imani told them as she tucked them in. "I promise. Everything is going to be okay." She hoped she wasn't lying. After the twins finally fell asleep, Imani went to her own room, pulled out the box she kept hidden in her closet, the box she never let the children see. Inside were photos, hundreds of photos of her and Louis from their time together, smiling at the camera, kissing on a beach, his arm around her shoulders at a restaurant, young and happy and in love, before everything fell apart. Imani pulled out one photo in particular, Louis holding her from behind, and both of them laughing at something. The photo was taken in Cornwall, actually, on one of their weekend trips. He'd been so relaxed here, so different from the intense driver the world usually saw. "I hope you can be that person again," Imani whispered to the photo. "For them. Please be that person for them." She put the photos away and climbed into bed. Lay awake in the dark, listening to the ocean through her open window, thinking about the choice she'd made 5 years ago. The choice to keep her children secret. The choice that had seemed so right at the time and so complicated now. Tomorrow, she'd have to call Louis, give him the address, make plans for the meeting, figure out what to say, how to make this work, how to blend their separate worlds without breaking anyone in the process. Imani closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But all she could see was Malik's excited face and Zara's worried eyes and Louis's devastated expression when he'd begged to meet his children. In 2 days, everything would change. She just hoped they could all survive it. Louis stood outside his hotel room, staring at his phone. He'd read Imani's text message 20 times already, but his brain couldn't quite process it. "Tomorrow at noon. Come to the house. I've told them about you. Malik is excited. Zara is nervous. Please be patient with them. And Louis, thank you for waiting. Tomorrow, noon." Less than 24 hours until he met his children. His children. The words still felt unreal, like something from a dream he might wake up from at any moment. Louis had spent the last 2 days in Cornwall, hiding in a small hotel, trying to prepare himself for this moment. And he'd called his mother, told her everything through tears and apologies. She'd cried too, then immediately started asking about the twins, what they looked like, what they liked, when she could meet them. "One step at a time, Mum," Louis had said. "I haven't even met them properly yet." Now that moment was almost here, and Louis felt terrified. What if they hated him? What if Malik and Zara looked at him and saw a stranger who'd abandoned them? What if they asked questions he didn't know how to answer? Louis paced his hotel room, too anxious to sleep. He'd already picked out clothes for tomorrow. Casual jeans and a soft sweater, nothing fancy. He wanted to look approachable, normal, like a regular dad, not a famous race car driver. At 11 p.m., he gave up on sleep entirely, grabbed his laptop and started researching. How to meet your child for the first time. Building relationships with kids. What 4-year-olds like. The internet had a lot of opinions. Be genuine. Don't try too hard. Let them set the pace. Bring small gifts, but nothing too expensive. Make eye contact at their level. Listen more than you talk. Lewis took notes like he was studying for the most important test of his life. Because, in a way, he was. Around midnight, he drove to a 24-hour store, wandered the toy aisles, completely lost. What did 4-year-olds even like? He picked up action figures, then put them down. Board games seemed too complicated. Stuffed animals felt too generic. Finally, in the book section, he found something perfect. A beautiful hardcover book about ocean animals, dolphins, whales, sea turtles, all illustrated in stunning detail. For Zara, who loved the ocean like her mother. For Malik, Lewis walked back to the toy section, saw the die-cast model cars, and stopped. There, on the shelf, was a perfect miniature replica of his Mercedes race car. The exact car he'd driven to victory in Abu Dhabi just days ago. Lewis picked it up carefully. It was detailed and beautiful, just the right size for small hands. He could picture Malik's face lighting up, could imagine his son racing it across the floor making engine noises. His son? Malik was his son. Lewis bought both gifts and drove back to the hotel. Spent the rest of the night alternating between excitement and pure terror. At 5 a.m., he finally dozed off for 2 restless hours. When he woke up, it was 9:30. 2.5 hours until he met his children. Lewis showered, shaved carefully, got dressed. May stared at himself in the mirror. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tension in his jaw. But his eyes were bright with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. At 11:30, he couldn't wait anymore. He grabbed the gifts and headed to his car. The drive to Imani's cottage took 12 minutes, but Lewis stretched it to 20, driving slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. When he pulled up outside the whitewashed cottage with blue shutters, he just sat there for a moment. He could see the slide in the garden, the tiny bicycles. Evidence of children, his children, living here. Lewis checked his watch. 11:55. Close enough. He got out of the car, gifts in hand, and walked to the front door. His legs felt shaky. His hands trembled. He raised his fist to knock, then hesitated. This was it. The moment everything changed. After this, there was no going back. He would be a father, would know his children, would carry the responsibility of their happiness for the rest of his life. Lewis knocked. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Imani stood there looking as nervous as Lewis felt. She'd dressed casually too, jeans and a green sweater. Her braids were down around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and terrified. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," Lewis managed. They stared at each other for a moment. 5 years of history hung between them. Love and loss and secrets and pain, but also something new, something fragile and hopeful. "They're in the living room," Imani said. Malik's been bouncing off the walls all morning. Zara's been very quiet." "Are they scared?" "Zara is. Malik's more excited than scared, I think. But they're both nervous." Imani looked at the gifts in Lewis's hands. "What did you bring?" "Just small things. A book for Zara. A toy car for Malik. Is that okay?" Imani's eyes softened. That's perfect. Come in. Louis stepped into the cottage. It was cozy inside, warm and lived in and loved. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered on the floor. Photos lined the walls, and Louis's eyes were drawn to them immediately. Pictures of the twins as babies, as toddlers, at the beach, in the garden, covered in paint at some kind of art project. Every stage of their lives, documented and treasured. Lives he'd missed completely. This way, Imani said, leading him toward the living room. Louis followed, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst out of his chest. When he could hear children's voices, Malik saying something in an excited whisper, Zara's quieter response. Imani stopped at the living room doorway, turned to Louis with an expression that was part warning, part plea. Be gentle with them, she whispered, especially Zara. She's more sensitive than Malik, and if they need space or want you to leave, please don't push. I won't, I promise. Imani nodded and stepped into the room. Babies, someone's here to meet you. Louis took a deep breath and followed her inside. Malik and Zara sat on the couch, looking tiny and nervous. Malik wore his Mercedes racing jacket over a striped shirt. Zara clutched her stuffed dolphin, her eyes huge and worried. When they saw Louis, Malik's mouth dropped open. Zara pressed closer to her brother. Louis's breath caught. Up close, without the chaos of the airport, he could see them clearly. Every detail, every feature that was him, her, both of them combined into two perfect little people. Malik had his exact eye shape, his ears, his bone structure. Zara had his forehead, his chin, his hands, small versions of Louis's hands, right down to the way she held her dolphin. But they also had Imani's warmth, her gentle presence, her ocean-deep eyes. They were the most beautiful thing Louis had ever seen. Hi, Louis said, his voice cracking. He crouched down to their level, just like the internet articles had suggested. Hi, Malik. Hi, Zara. I'm Louis. It's really, really nice to meet you both. Malik stared at him with wide eyes. You're really him. You're really Louis Hamilton. I really am, Louis said, smiling despite his tears. And you're really Malik. I've been wanting to meet you well, since the moment I found out you existed. Mommy said you didn't know about us, Malik said, his little forehead wrinkling. How come you didn't know? Louis glanced at Imani. She gave him a tiny nod, permission to answer honestly. That's a complicated grown-up story, Louis said carefully. But the short version is that your mom and I had some problems, and we stopped talking to each other. So when she found out she was going to have you two, she couldn't tell me. It was my fault, really. I should have been easier to talk to. Mummy said you drive race cars, Malik said, bouncing slightly. Is that true? Do you really drive a real Mercedes on TV? I really do. That's my job. I race cars all around the world. That's so cool. Malik's nervousness was evaporating, replaced by pure 4-year-old excitement. Sue, I watch you race all the time. You're the fastest driver ever. You won last week in Abu Dhabi. Louis felt his heart squeeze. His son had been watching him race, had been cheering for him without knowing they were connected. I did win, Louis said. And you know what? I brought you something. He held out the toy Mercedes. This is the exact car I drove. I thought maybe you'd like to have it. Malik's eyes went huge. He looked at Imani for permission. She nodded. Malik carefully took the car from Louis's hands, holding it like it was made of gold. This is the best present ever, Malik whispered. Thank you. You're welcome, buddy. Louis turned his attention to Zara, who was still pressed against Malik's side, watching everything with cautious eyes. She hadn't spoken yet, hadn't moved except to grip her dolphin tighter. "Hi." "Oh, Zara," Louis said softly, making sure not to move too close too fast. "Your mom told me you love dolphins and the ocean. Is that true?" Zara nodded slightly, but didn't speak. "I brought you something too." Louis held out the ocean book. "It's got pictures of all kinds of sea creatures, dolphins, whales, sea turtles, all the animals your mum studies." Zara looked at the book, then at Imani, then back at Louis. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. Her fingers, those tiny fingers that looked like Louis's, traced the cover gently. "Thank you," she whispered, so quiet Louis almost didn't hear it. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Malik was already making engine noises, racing his new car across the coffee table. But Zara was still watching Louis with those big, uncertain eyes. "Are you really our daddy?" she asked suddenly, and Louis felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. "Yes, baby, I really am." "Why weren't you here before?" It was the question Louis had been dreading. The one he didn't have a good answer for. "Because I didn't know you existed," felt like such a weak excuse. These children had spent 4 years wondering about their father. And "I didn't know" didn't erase that pain. "I made mistakes," Louis said honestly. "Big mistakes. I wasn't there when I should have been, and I'm so sorry about that. But I'm here now, and if you'll let me, I'd really like to get to know you. Both of you." "Will you stay?" Zara asked. "Or will you go away again?" Louis looked at Imani. She was crying silently, her hand pressed to her mouth, looking at Louis with an expression that said, "Please don't hurt them. Please, don't promise something you can't deliver." "I'm going to stay," Louis said to Zara, making a promise he intended to keep with every fiber of his being. "I'm going to be here as much as your mum will let me. I'm going to learn what you like, and what makes you laugh, and what your favorite foods are. I'm going to be your dad. For real. Forever. If that's okay with you." Zara studied his face for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't instant acceptance. But it was a start. A tiny crack in the wall. Permission to try. Louis felt tears spill down his cheeks. He didn't try to hide them. "Thank you," he said to both children. "Thank you for giving me a chance." Malik suddenly looked up from his car. "Can you come to the beach with us? Mommy takes us every Saturday, and we look for shells and build sand castles. Will you come?" Louis looked at Imani. She gave a small, uncertain nod. "I would love to come to the beach with you," Louis said. "What time do you usually go?" "After lunch," Malik said. "Mommy makes sandwiches, and we have a picnic." That sounds perfect. The next few hours passed in a blur. Imani made sandwiches, while Louis sat awkwardly in the living room with the twins. Malik chatted nonstop about racing, about cars, about school. Zara was quieter, but she opened her ocean book and started looking at the pictures. At one point, she scooted slightly closer to Louis, pointed at a picture of a dolphin. "Mummy saw this kind of dolphin once," she said. "In Australia. She said they were beautiful." "Your mum loves dolphins," Louis said. "She used to tell me about them all the time. Oh, about how smart they are and how they take care of each other." "Like families," Zara said. "Exactly like families." Zara looked up at him with those deep brown eyes. "We're a family now?" Louis's throat closed up. "Yes, sweetheart. We're a family now." A small smile crossed Zara's face, the first real smile she'd given him. and Louis felt like he could breathe properly for the first time in 5 years. After lunch, they all piled into Imani's car and drove to the beach. The sky was gray, but not raining. The wind blew cold off the ocean. Perfect Cornwall weather. Malik ran ahead immediately, his jacket flapping behind him. Zara walked more carefully, stopping to examine every shell, every piece of seaweed. Louis followed, completely out of his element, but trying his best. "You're doing good," Imani said quietly, walking beside him. "Sis, I have no idea what I'm doing," Louis admitted. "None of us do. That's what parenting is. Making it up as you go and hoping you don't mess them up too badly." Louis watched Malik try to build a sandcastle, his small hands patting the wet sand enthusiastically but ineffectively. Without thinking, Louis went over and crouched beside him. "Want help?" he asked. "Yes. How do you make the towers tall?" Louis showed him, his hands covering Malik's smaller ones, guiding them, teaching his son something simple and ordinary and perfect. Zara appeared with a bucket full of shells. "For decorating," she said shyly. Together, the three of them built a sandcastle. It was lopsided and messy, and the towers kept collapsing. But Malik laughed every time they had to rebuild, and Zara carefully placed shells around the base, making it beautiful. Imani took a photo on her phone. Louis looked up and saw tears in her eyes. "What?" he mouthed. She just shook her head, smiling. But Louis understood. This moment, this simple, perfect moment, was something she'd thought she'd never have. A family picture. A father and his children, building sandcastles together. When the tide started coming in, they walked along the beach. Malik found a dead crab and wanted to bring it home. Louis convinced him that the crab needed to stay at the beach. "But what if he's lonely?" Malik asked. "Then his crab family will find him," Louis said, "and they'll be together again." Malik considered this, then nodded. "Okay, like how you found us." Louis had to turn away so Malik wouldn't see him cry. As the afternoon faded to evening, they headed back to the cottage. The twins were tired, sandy, and happy. Zara had fallen and scraped her knee at one point. She'd run crying to Louis before she even realized what she was doing. Louis had cleaned the scrape gently, making silly faces until she smiled through her tears. And something had shifted. Some invisible barrier had come down. "Will you come back?" Malik asked, as Imani started getting the twins ready for their bath. "Tomorrow." Louis looked at Imani. "You can come for dinner tomorrow," she said. "If you want. Nothing fancy, just dinner with us." "I'd love that," Louis said immediately. Malik cheered. Even Zara looked pleased. "Say goodnight to Louis," Imani instructed. "It's bath time." "Good night, Louis," Malik said, then paused. Can I call you Dad?" Louis felt his knees go weak. He crouched down so he was eye level with his son. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, buddy. If Dad feels right, then yes, I'd be honored." "Good night, Dad," Malik said, testing out the word. He grinned. "That sounds good." He ran off toward the bathroom. Zara lingered, holding her dolphin. She walked up to Louis slowly, then wrapped her arms around his legs in a quick hug. "Good night," she whispered. "Thank you for the book." Then she ran off after her brother, leaving Louis standing in the hallway with tears streaming down his face. Imani walked him to the door. They stood on the porch, the ocean visible in the distance, the sound of the twins splashing in the bath drifting from inside. "Thank you," Louis said, "for today, for letting me meet them, for everything." "They liked you," Imani said softly. "I wasn't sure they would, but they did. Especially Malik. Since he's been without a father figure his whole life, He's hungry for it. And Zara? Zara's cautious, but she warmed up to you faster than I expected. That hug at the end? Imani's voice broke. She doesn't hug people easily. You must have made her feel safe. I meant what I said, Louis told her. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here, for them, for as long as they need me. Good, Imani said, because they're already starting to love you. And if you break their hearts, Lewis Hamilton, I will make your life a living hell. Louis smiled despite his tears. I believe you, but you don't have to worry. I'm not leaving them. Or you. Imani's eyes widened slightly at that last part, but she didn't comment, just nodded. See you tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't be. Louis drove back to his hotel in a daze. His clothes were sandy. His hands smelled like seawater and sunscreen. His heart felt full in a way it never had before. He had children. A son who called him Dad. A daughter who hugged him goodnight. And a chance, a real chance, to be the father they deserved. Louis sat in his hotel room and called his mother. I met them, Mum, he said when she answered. I met my children. And? His mother's voice was thick with emotion. And they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure they know how much I love them. His mother cried happy tears. Louis cried too. And somewhere in a small cottage by the sea, two children fell asleep, dreaming about the father who'd finally come home. Over the next 3 weeks, Louis became part of the daily rhythm of Imani's household, and he arrived every morning at 8, helped make breakfast, walked the twins to school. He learned that Malik liked his toast cut into triangles and that Zara refused to wear socks that didn't match perfectly. He discovered that Malik threw tantrums when he was overtired, turning red and screaming until Louis held him and counted slowly to 10. He learned that Zara had nightmares about sea creatures getting hurt, and the only thing that helped was sitting with her in the dark, talking quietly about how the ocean was healing. Louis attended parent-teacher conferences, helped with homework, built Lego towers that Malik immediately destroyed with toy cars, read the ocean book to Zara so many times he had it memorized. He was exhausted, completely, utterly exhausted in a way racing had never made him. But he'd also never been happier. Dad, did you watch this? Malik shouted one afternoon in the garden, attempting a cartwheel that turned into a messy roll. That was amazing, Louis called back, and Malik's face split into a huge grin. Dad. Malik called him Dad so naturally now, like Louis had always been there. Zara was slower. She still called him Louis most of the time, occasionally slipping and saying Daddy when she was tired or upset. But Louis didn't push. He let her move at her own pace. The media attention had died down after Louis's lawyers sent cease and desist letters to everyone who'd published photos of the twins. A carefully worded statement had been released. Lewis Hamilton has recently discovered he has children from a previous relationship. He asks for privacy as his family navigates this new situation. The racing world had exploded with speculation, but Louis ignored it all. He'd canceled races, pulled out of sponsor commitments, told his team he needed the off-season extended indefinitely. Your career, his manager had started. My career can wait, Louis had said firmly. My children can't. Now, standing in Imani's kitchen on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, watching her make dinner while the twins colored at the table, Louis felt something shift inside him. Something that had been broken 5 years ago was slowly mending. Imani hummed softly as she chopped vegetables, her braids pulled up in a messy bun. She wore leggings and an old university sweatshirt with paint stains on it. No makeup. completely comfortable and unself-conscious. She was beautiful. Louis had been trying not to think about it, trying to focus only on the twins, on building relationships with Malik and Zara. But it was getting harder to ignore the way his heart jumped when Imani laughed, the way his breath caught when she smiled at him over the twins' heads. He was falling in love with her all over again. Or maybe he'd never stopped loving her at all. "Can you get the pasta down?" Imani asked, gesturing to a high cabinet. "I can never reach it." Louis grabbed the box, his hand brushing hers as he handed it over. Their eyes met, held for a moment too long. Imani looked away first, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "Thanks." "Mummy, I'm hungry," Malik complained from the table. "Dinner in 20 minutes, baby." "But I'm hungry now." "Here," Louis said, grabbing an apple and cutting it into slices. "This should hold you over." Malik took the apple happily. Zara looked up from her coloring. "Can I have some too?" "Of course, my sweetheart." Louis cut another apple, making sure the slices were even. Zara got upset if they weren't the same size. After dinner, Louis helped with bath time. It had become their routine. Imani washed Malik while Louis helped Zara, who was particular about getting soap in her eyes. "Dad?" Zara said, as Louis carefully rinsed shampoo from her curls. Louis's heart jumped. She'd called him Dad. Not Louis. Dad. "Yeah, baby? Are you going to stay forever?" Louis's hands stilled. "What do you mean?" "Oliver's dad left. He doesn't live with Oliver anymore. Oliver only sees him sometimes." Zara looked up at him with worried eyes. "Are you going to leave like Oliver's dad?" Louis knelt beside the bathtub, getting his shirt wet, but not caring. "No, Zara, I'm not leaving. I'm going to be here for you and Malik for the rest of my life. I promise." "But you have your race car job. You have to go away sometimes." "I do have to work sometimes," Louis admitted, "but I'll always come back. And when I'm gone, we can video call every single day. You can tell me about school and show me what you're learning, okay?" Zara thought about this seriously. "Okay, but you promise you'll come back?" "I promise with my whole heart." Zara hugged him then, her wet arms wrapping around his neck, getting him completely soaked. Louis held her carefully, this precious little girl who was learning to trust him. After the twins were in bed, Louis and Imani found themselves alone. It happened most nights now. They'd clean up the kitchen together, talk quietly about the day, share stories about Malik and Zara. Tonight, Imani poured them each a glass of wine and led Louis out to the small porch. And the ocean was just visible in the moonlight, waves crashing against rocks in the distance. "They're getting attached to you," Imani said quietly. "Especially Malik. He talks about you constantly at school. His teacher says he tells everyone, 'My dad is Louis Hamilton.'" Louis smiled. "Is that a problem?" "No, but it means you really can't leave now. You understand that, right? You're not just part of their lives. You're becoming central to their world. If you disappeared now, it would destroy them." "I'm not going to disappear," Louis said firmly. "Imani, I know I messed up 5 years ago. I know I chose wrong, but I'm choosing right now. They're the most important thing in my life. Nothing comes close. Not racing, not fame, not anything." Imani studied his face in the dim light. "You've changed. The old Louis would have said racing was the most important thing. The old Louis was an idiot who didn't know what mattered." Louis turned to face her fully. "You know what I realized? All those championships, all those victories, I can't even remember most of them. They blur together. But I remember every single moment of the last 3 weeks. Malik's laugh, Zara calling me dad for the first time tonight, teaching them to build sand castles. Those memories are vivid and real and precious. That's what matters. Louis, Imani's voice was soft, uncertain. I know we have a complicated past, Louis continued. I know I hurt you. But Imani, being here with you and the kids, it feels right. It feels like this is what I've been missing. Not just the twins, you, us, this. Imani stood up abruptly. Say, don't do this. Do what? Say things that will make me hope again. Her voice cracked. I've built a life here, Louis. A safe, stable life. I can't let you come in and turn everything upside down with pretty words about how things have changed. They're not pretty words. They're the truth. Are they? Imani turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Or are you just caught up in the moment? In the novelty of being a father? What happens in 6 months when the reality sets in? When you realize that parenting is boring and exhausting and repetitive? When the racing season starts and you're itching to get back to your real life? This is my real life now. You say that now. I mean it. Louis stood too, frustration bleeding into his voice. Why won't you believe me? What do I have to do to prove that I'm not that same selfish person I was 5 years ago? I don't know, Imani shouted, then immediately lowered her voice, remembering the sleeping children inside. I don't know, Louis. Time, maybe? Consistency? Not making promises you might not keep? I'm keeping every promise I've made. So far, it's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks doesn't erase 5 years of absence. Louis felt like she'd slapped him. That's not fair. I would have been here if I'd known. But you didn't know. And yes, that's partly my fault. But it's also because you made it impossible for me to tell you. You were too busy, too focused on your career, too wrapped up in being Lewis Hamilton to notice that the woman you claimed to love was falling apart. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, old wounds ripped open and bleeding fresh. I loved you, Louis said quietly. I loved you so much it scared me. And I was young and stupid and I handled it badly. But I loved you, Imani. And I think I never stopped. Imani's face crumpled. Don't say that. Why not? Because I'm trying so hard not to fall for you again. The words burst out of her like a confession. Because every time you smile at our children, every time you're patient with Zara's questions, or you let Malik climb all over you, I remember why I loved you, and it terrifies me. Because what if this doesn't work? What if we try again and fail again? It's not just my heart at risk anymore. It's theirs too. Louis stepped closer, his voice gentle. What if we don't fail? What if we actually get it right this time? Life doesn't work like that. You don't get second chances at fairy tales. Maybe we do. Maybe that's exactly what this is. A second chance to build something real. Something that lasts. Imani wiped her eyes roughly. I need time. I need to think. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. They stood in silence for a moment, the ocean providing the only sound. Finally, Imani said, You should probably go. It's late. Louis wanted to argue, wanted to stay and push and make her see that they could work this time. But he also understood that pushing would only drive her further away. Okay, he said. I'll see you tomorrow? Same time? Imani nodded. The twins would be devastated if you didn't show up. And you? Louis asked quietly. Would you be disappointed? Imani didn't answer, just walked back into the cottage, leaving Louis alone on the porch with his heart full of hope and fear. The next few days were slightly awkward. Imani was careful around Louis, maintaining distance, keeping conversations focused on the children. Louis respected her boundaries but made sure she saw him, really saw him, being present for Malik and Zara. He learned to French braid Zara's hair after watching 3 YouTube tutorials. She sat patiently while he practiced, even when he pulled too hard or got the sections uneven. "It's okay, Dad," she said. "You're learning." He taught Malik basic football in the garden, laughing when his son tripped over his own feet, but patiently explaining how to kick properly. He helped Imani with grocery shopping, learned which brand of cereal the twins preferred, figured out that Zara only ate green apples while Malik only ate red ones. And slowly, carefully, he showed Imani that he meant what he said, that this wasn't temporary, that he was building a life here, with them. One evening, about a week after their conversation on the porch, Imani was working late at the foundation. Louis had offered to watch the twins, and she'd reluctantly agreed. Around 8 p.m., Imani came home to find the cottage quiet. Too quiet. She found Louis in the twins' bedroom. Malik was curled against his left side, fast asleep. Zara was tucked against his right, her dolphin trapped between them. Louis's arms were around both children, his head tilted back against the headboard, also asleep. The ocean book lay open across Louis's lap. He'd been reading to them and they'd all fallen asleep together. Imani stood in the doorway, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. This image, this perfect, beautiful image of a father with his children, was something she'd dreamed about for years, something she'd thought she'd never have. Louis's eyes fluttered open. He saw Imani and smiled sleepily. "Hey, sorry. We were reading and everyone just crashed." "Don't move," Imani whispered, pulling out her phone. "Please, just don't move." She took a photo, then another, capturing this moment, this proof that fairy tales might actually exist. Louis carefully extracted himself from the sleeping twins, covering them with blankets and kissing each of their foreheads. He followed Imani out to the living room. "I should go," he said quietly. "Wait." Imani caught his hand. "Thank you. For today. For every day. For showing up and staying and being exactly what they need. They're my children. It's not something you have to thank me for. But I do. Because you could have decided this was too hard. Could have seen them once, satisfied your curiosity and left. But you didn't. You stayed. You're staying." Louis squeezed her hand. "I told you I wasn't leaving." "I know, and I'm starting to believe you." They stood there, hands linked, the air between them charged with possibility. "Imani," Louis said softly, "can I take you to dinner? Just us. No kids? A proper date." "I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, let me show you that this isn't just about the twins. That I want us. All of us. As a family. But I also want you. Just you." Imani bit her lip, clearly torn. "One dinner. But it doesn't mean anything except dinner," Louis promised, even though they both knew it meant so much more. "Okay. Saturday. Destiny can watch the twins." "Saturday," Louis agreed, his heart soaring. As he drove back to his hotel that night, Louis felt hope blooming in his chest. He was falling in love with Imani all over again. And maybe, just maybe, she was falling too. They just had to figure out how to build something new from the broken pieces of their past. And Louis was determined to get it right this time. Saturday arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Louis stood in front of his hotel mirror, adjusting his collar for the 10th time. He'd chosen a simple black button-down and dark jeans, nice enough for a date, but not too formal. A date with Imani, after 5 years. His phone buzzed. A text from her. "Destiny's here. I'm almost ready. Pick me up at 7? Louis replied immediately, I'll be there. And he had reservations at a quiet restaurant in a nearby town, small, intimate, far enough from Cornwall that they wouldn't be recognized. He'd arranged everything carefully. This night needed to be perfect. At 6:45, Louis pulled up outside Imani's cottage. Through the window, he could see Destiny playing with the twins. Malik was showing her his toy cars. Zara sat on the couch with her ocean book. The front door opened, and Louis forgot how to breathe. Imani wore a deep blue dress that brought out the warmth in her skin. Her braids were styled elegantly, falling over one shoulder. She'd put on makeup, not much, just enough to highlight her eyes and lips. She was stunning. "Hi," she said, a shy smile on her face. "You look—" Louis couldn't find words. "You're beautiful." Imani blushed. "Thank you. And you clean up pretty well yourself." Before they could leave, Malik came running to the door. "Where are you going?" "Mommy and Dad are going to dinner," Imani explained. "Destiny's going to stay with you and Zara. We'll be back before bedtime." "But I want to come," Malik's lower lip jutted out. "Not tonight, buddy," Louis said, crouching down. "This is grown-up time. But tomorrow, how about we go to that park you've been wanting to visit?" Malik considered this. "The one with the big slide?" "The biggest slide I've ever seen." "Okay, deal." Malik hugged Louis quickly, then ran back inside. Zara appeared in the doorway, clutching her dolphin. She looked worried. "You're coming back, right?" Imani's face softened. "Of course, baby. We're just going to eat dinner. Oh, we'll be back in a few hours." "Promise?" "I promise." Imani kissed her daughter's forehead. Zara looked at Louis. "You promise too?" "I promise, sweetheart. I'll be back before you even miss me." Satisfied, Zara retreated inside. Louis helped Imani into the car, his hand lingering on hers for just a moment. The drive to the restaurant was comfortable. They talked about small things: the twins' upcoming school concert, Imani's latest research project, Louis's plans to restructure his racing schedule. "I've been thinking," Louis said as they drove through the darkening countryside, "about next season. I'm going to race, but only the European rounds. No long-distance travel, no multi-week trips. I want to be home every night that I can be." "Louis, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted gently. "My team understands, and we're working it out. Some sponsors aren't happy, but that's their problem. My family comes first now." Imani was quiet for a moment. "You keep saying family, because that's what we are, aren't we?" "I don't know what we are," Imani admitted, "but I'm trying to figure it out." They arrived at the restaurant, a small Italian place with candles on every table and soft music playing. The host seated them in a corner booth, private and intimate. "This is lovely," Imani said, looking around. "How did you find it?" "Internet research. I wanted somewhere special, somewhere we could just be ourselves, talk without worrying about cameras or interruptions." They ordered wine and pasta. For the first hour, conversation flowed easily. They talked about the twins, funny things they'd said, milestones they were reaching. See how Malik was starting to read and Zara was becoming obsessed with marine biology. "She's just like you," Louis said, "always asking questions about the ocean, about why things are the way they are. She has your persistence, though. When she wants to know something, she doesn't give up until she understands it completely. Malik has your kindness. The other day, he gave his favorite toy car to a kid at school who was crying. Just handed it over like it was nothing." Imani's eyes misted. "He did?" "He said the other kid needed it more. That's all you, Imani. You raised them to be generous and thoughtful and good." I tried, Imani said quietly. I was terrified the whole time that I was doing it wrong, that raising them without a father would damage them somehow. You did an incredible job. They're perfect. They're not perfect. Malik throws tantrums. Zara has anxiety about things that shouldn't scare her. They fight constantly over the stupidest things. That's called being kids, Louis said, smiling. And they're still perfect. Perfect for us, anyway. Imani took a sip of wine, her expression thoughtful. Can I ask you something? And I need you to be completely honest. Anything. Do you resent me? For keeping them from you? Even a little bit? Louis set down his fork. He'd known this question was coming eventually. No, I don't resent you. How can you not? I stole 5 years from you. 5 years you can never get back. Because I understand why you did it, Louis said. You were scared and alone, and I'd made you feel like you didn't matter, like racing was more important than you. So you protected yourself and the twins the only way you knew how. I don't resent you for that. I resent myself for creating a situation where you felt you had no other choice. Tears spilled down Imani's cheeks. I wanted to tell you so many times. When they were born, and the nurse asked if I wanted to call the father. On their first birthday when Malik took his first steps, when Zara said her first word, Mama. I wanted you there for all of it, but I was so afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd take them from me. That you'd use your money and influence to get custody. That I'd lose them. Imani's voice broke. They're everything, Louis. Everything. The thought of losing them was worse than the thought of them growing up without a father. Louis reached across the table and took her hand. I would never take them from you. Never. You're their mother. You're the one who's been there every single day. I'm just trying to catch up, trying to earn my place in their lives. You've earned it, Imani said. They adore you. Malik talks about you constantly. And Zara, she hugged you goodnight yesterday without being prompted. She doesn't do that with anyone except me and Destiny. I noticed, Louis said softly. It felt like winning every championship combined. They finished their meal, talking more openly than they had in 5 years, about their mistakes, about their fears, about what they wanted for the future. I want to be with you, Louis said as dessert arrived. Not just as the twins' father. I want us to try again, to build something real this time. Imani looked down at her plate. I want that too. But I'm scared. Of what? Of getting hurt again. Of the twins getting hurt. Of building something beautiful and having it fall apart because your life is too complicated, too public, too demanding. My life is what I make it, Louis said firmly, and I'm making it about family now, about you and Malik and Zara. Everything else is secondary. You say that now. I mean it. Imani, I've spent 5 years being miserable, winning races but feeling empty, achieving everything I thought I wanted and realizing none of it mattered. Because the thing I actually wanted, you, was gone. And I'd driven you away through my own stupidity. I'm not making that mistake again. Imani opened her mouth to respond, but her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, then her face went pale. What's wrong? Louis asked immediately. Imani turned her phone toward him. The screen showed a news alert. Exclusive. Lewis Hamilton's secret love child. Photos inside. Louis felt his stomach drop. No, I had my lawyers. Imani was already scrolling through the article. Her hands shook. There are photos, Louis. Photos of you with the twins at the beach, close-ups of their faces, and speculation about who I am. They're calling me your mystery baby mama. How did they? Louis pulled out his own phone. The story was everywhere. Every major news outlet. Social media was exploding with photos and commentary. Someone had been following them, taking pictures from a distance, careful not to be seen. And now, those photos were public. "We have to go," Imani said, standing abruptly. "I need to get home. I need to check on the twins." Louis threw cash on the table and rushed after her. On the drive back to Cornwall was tense and silent. Imani kept refreshing her phone, her face getting paler with each new article. "They know my name now," she said quietly. "They've found my foundation, my address. There are photos of the cottage. Oh God, Louis, there are photos of our home." "I'll fix this," Louis said desperately. "I'll call my lawyers right now. We'll get injunctions, You can't fix this," Imani's voice rose. "It's out there. Everyone knows now. About me, about the twins, about everything. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I kept them secret." Louis couldn't argue, because she was right. The thing she'd feared most had happened. Their private life was now public entertainment. When they reached the cottage, there were already photographers outside. 3 of them, cameras ready, waiting. And they started snapping photos the moment Louis's car appeared. "Stay in the car," Louis ordered. He got out, putting himself between the photographers and Imani. "Louis, is it true you have twins? How long have you known about them? Why did their mother keep them secret? Did you pay child support?" Louis ignored every question. He opened Imani's door, shielding her with his body as they rushed to the cottage. The photographers followed, cameras clicking rapidly, shouting more questions. Inside, Destiny met them at the door, looking terrified. "They showed up 20 minutes ago. I've been keeping the curtains closed. The twins don't know they're out there, but—" "Where are Malik and Zara?" Imani demanded. "Upstairs, asleep. I checked on them 5 minutes ago." Imani rushed upstairs. Louis followed, his heart hammering. And they found both twins sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the chaos outside. "We need to call the police," Louis said quietly. "Get those photographers removed from the property." "And then what?" Imani turned to face him, anger and fear fighting for dominance in her expression. "More will come tomorrow, and the next day. Our address is public now. This cottage, this safe, quiet place where my children have been happy, is compromised. We can't stay here. Then we'll go somewhere else. I'll arrange security. This is what I told you would happen." Imani's voice rose, then immediately dropped when she remembered the sleeping children. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world doesn't allow for privacy, for normalcy, for children to just be children without cameras documenting their every move. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this." Imani sat on the edge of Zara's bed, her head in her hands. "They're 4 years old, Louis. They shouldn't have to deal with paparazzi, with strangers taking their pictures, with the whole world knowing their names and faces." Louis felt helpless. Everything Imani had predicted was coming true, and he had no idea how to protect his family from the monster his fame had become. Downstairs, there was a loud knock, then another, more insistent. "Police!" a voice called. "Someone called about photographers on private property?" Louis went downstairs to talk to the officers. By the time they'd convinced the photographers to leave, with threats of trespassing charges, it was nearly midnight. Destiny had gone home. Imani sat on the couch, looking exhausted and defeated. The twins were still asleep, blissfully unaware. "I should stay," Louis said, "in case more photographers come back." "No," Imani's voice was flat. "You should go. Imani? Please, Louis, just go. I need to think. I need to figure out how to explain to my 4-year-old children why there are strangers taking pictures of our house. Let me help. We can figure this out together. Can we? Imani looked at him with exhausted eyes. Because right now, it feels like your presence in their lives brings more chaos than stability. And I don't know how to balance that. I don't know how to give them a father while also protecting them from the nightmare that comes with having Lewis Hamilton as a dad. Her words cut deep. But Louis couldn't argue because he understood. His fame was a double-edged sword. It gave him resources but cost him privacy. And it opened doors but trapped him in a spotlight he couldn't escape. And now it was trapping Malik and Zara too. "I'll go," Louis said quietly. "But I'm coming back tomorrow. We need to talk about security, about how to handle this, about—" "Maybe you shouldn't come tomorrow," Imani interrupted. "Maybe we all need some space, some time to process this. You're not pushing me out of their lives. I'm not. I'm asking for time. Please." Louis wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight and fix this. But he also knew that pushing right now would only make things worse. "Okay," he said. "I'll give you time. But Imani, I'm not giving up. On them or on you. This is a setback, not an ending." Imani didn't respond, just walked him to the door and locked it behind him. Louis drove back to his hotel through the dark countryside, his mind racing. The media storm had begun, and he had no idea how to protect the people he loved from it. His phone rang, his publicist. "We need to get ahead of this," she said immediately. "Control the narrative. I'm scheduling interviews, a photo shoot with you and the kids." "Absolutely not," Louis interrupted. "My children are not doing photo shoots. They're not doing interviews. They're 4 years old. They're off limits. Louis, if we don't control the story, someone else will. And the narrative they're building right now, secret love children, abandoned by their famous father, it's not good. I don't care about the narrative. I care about protecting my kids." "Then let me help you do that. A carefully controlled statement. Maybe one photo, professionally done, on your terms. No photos, no statements involving the twins. Just put out that I'm requesting privacy for my family. That's it." His publicist sighed. "Fine. But this isn't going away, Louis. You know that, right? Those kids are news now. Hamilton's secret twins. That's a story that's going to follow them." Louis hung up and sat in his hotel room, staring at his phone, at the dozens of notifications, at the photos of his children being shared across the internet. He'd wanted to be part of their lives, to be their father, and now he'd brought them exactly what Imani had feared most. The question was, how did he fix it? And could he fix it before Imani decided the cost was too high? Louis didn't sleep. He spent the entire night pacing his hotel room, making phone calls, trying to control damage that felt uncontrollable. His lawyers were working on restraining orders. His security team was developing protection protocols. His publicist was crafting statements. But none of it felt like enough. At 6 a.m., Louis couldn't stand it anymore. He drove to Imani's cottage, expecting to find more photographers. Instead, the street was empty, quiet, like the storm from last night had never happened. He knocked softly on the door. No answer. Louis knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. His heart started racing. What if something had happened? What if photographers had come back? What if— The door flew open. Imani stood there in pajamas, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "What are you doing here?" "I said I needed space. I couldn't stay away. I needed to know you were okay." that the twins were... We're fine. The police drove by 3 times last night. No one came back. Imani looked exhausted. Hey, but we can't stay here. I've already called my landlord. We're moving. Moving? Where? I don't know yet. Somewhere private. Somewhere photographers can't find us. Imani's voice was flat, emotionless. The twins woke up early. They saw the news on my laptop before I could close it. Malik saw his own face on the screen. Lewis's stomach dropped. What did he say? He asked why we were on the computer like the racing videos. Asked if he was famous now like his dad. Imani's voice cracked. He's 4 years old, Lewis. He doesn't understand what this means, that his privacy is gone, that strangers know his name and face. He just thinks it's exciting. And Zara? Terrified. She's hiding under her bed right now, convinced the camera people are going to come inside. Tears spilled down Imani's cheeks. Yeah, this is exactly what I was trying to prevent. And now it's happened anyway. Before Lewis could respond, he heard a crash from upstairs. Then Malik's voice, high and panicked. "Mommy! Something's wrong with Zara!" Imani and Lewis both ran upstairs. They found Malik standing in the hallway crying. "She won't wake up. I tried to wake her up and she won't open her eyes." Lewis's heart stopped. He rushed into Zara's room. She was on the floor beside her bed, unconscious, her small body frighteningly still. "Zara!" Imani dropped to her knees, gently shaking her daughter. "Baby, wake up! Wake up!" Lewis checked for a pulse. Found one, but it was fast. Too fast. "She's breathing, but something's wrong. Call an ambulance." Imani was already dialing, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Lewis scooped Zara into his arms. She was burning up, fever raging through her small body. "How long has she been sick?" Lewis demanded. "She wasn't sick. She was fine last night. She was..." Imani's voice broke into sobs. "The ambulance is coming. They said 5 minutes." Malik stood in the doorway, crying. "Is Zara going to be okay? Did I do something wrong?" "No, buddy. You did exactly right by getting us." Lewis tried to keep his voice calm, even though terror was clawing at his chest. "Can you do something for me? Can you get Zara's dolphin? She'll want it when she wakes up." Malik nodded and ran to find the stuffed animal, grateful to have a task. Zara's eyelids fluttered. "Daddy?" The word came out weak, confused. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. You're going to be okay." "My head hurts. Everything hurts." "I know, sweetheart. The ambulance is coming. They're going to help you feel better." The next 5 minutes were the longest of Lewis's life. Imani held Zara's hand, crying silently. Malik clutched the stuffed dolphin, his face pale with fear. Lewis kept checking Zara's pulse, monitoring her breathing, terrified she'd slip away before help arrived. When the ambulance finally came, the paramedics took over. They asked rapid-fire questions. When did the symptoms start? Any recent illnesses? Known allergies? Imani answered as best she could, but she was falling apart. "I'm riding with her," Lewis said as they loaded Zara into the ambulance. "Family only," the paramedic said. "I'm her father." The paramedic looked between Lewis and Imani. Imani nodded. "He is. Let him come." Lewis climbed into the ambulance. Imani got into her car with Malik, following behind. On the drive to the hospital was a blur of monitors beeping and paramedics working efficiently, while Lewis held his daughter's tiny hand and prayed harder than he'd ever prayed in his life. At the hospital, they rushed Zara into emergency. Lewis and Imani were left in a waiting room with Malik, who was now sobbing uncontrollably. "I want my sister! I want Zara!" Lewis pulled Malik onto his lap, holding him tight. The doctors are helping her right now. They're very good at their job. Zara's going to be okay." "You promise?" Louis couldn't promise that, couldn't guarantee anything. But looking into his son's terrified eyes, he said, "I promise we're going to do everything we can to help her." Imani paced the waiting room like a caged animal. "This is my fault. I was so focused on the media thing. On being angry about the photos. I didn't notice she was getting sick. What kind of mother doesn't notice her child is sick?" "She wasn't sick last night," Louis said firmly. "You said so yourself. Whatever this is, it came on fast. This isn't your fault." "Then whose fault is it?" Imani spun to face him, her face streaked with tears. "Because my baby is in there, unconscious, and someone has to be responsible." Before Louis could respond, a doctor emerged. "Family of Zara Hamilton Clark?" They all stood immediately. Louis kept Malik on his hip. "I'm her mother," Imani said. "And I'm her father," Louis added. The doctor looked at his chart. "Zara has a severe viral infection. Her fever spiked to 104 degrees, which is what caused her to lose consciousness. We've started her on IV fluids and fever reducers, and we need to run more tests to determine exactly what type of infection, but right now, she's stable." "Can we see her?" Imani asked desperately. "Soon. We're moving her to a pediatric room, but I need to be honest. We suspected meningitis initially. We're running a spinal tap now to rule it out." Imani's knees buckled. Louis caught her with his free arm, keeping Malik steady with the other. "Meningitis? We're not sure yet. The symptoms are similar to several viral infections, but I want you prepared for the possibility. If it is meningitis, we'll need to act aggressively with treatment." After the doctor left, Imani collapsed into a chair. "I can't lose her. I can't. She's my baby. My little girl. I can't." "You're not going to lose her," Louis said, sitting beside her. Malik was still clinging to him, his face buried in Louis's shoulder. "She's strong. She's a fighter, just like her mom." "What if she's not strong enough? What if—" "Don't do that. Don't go there." Louis took Imani's hand. "We're going to think positive. We're going to wait for the test results. And we're going to be here for her. Both of us. Together." Imani looked at their joined hands. Then at Malik, who had finally stopped crying and was just breathing shakily against Louis's chest. Then at Louis's face, the face of a man who was just as terrified as she was, but trying desperately to hold it together for their family. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for what I said earlier. About you bringing chaos, about needing space. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. And you were right. My life does bring complications. But Imani, I'm here now. And I'm not leaving. Not you, not Malik, not Zara. No matter what happens, we face it together." 2 hours passed like years. They sat in the waiting room, barely speaking. Malik eventually fell asleep in Louis's arms, exhausted from crying. Imani stared at the wall, her hand still gripped tight in Louis's. Louis made phone calls with his free hand, first to his mother, who immediately started crying and praying, then to his team, canceling everything for the foreseeable future, then to his lawyers, demanding they expedite every protection order, every privacy measure, everything that could shield his family from media attention. "I don't care what it costs," Louis said quietly into the phone. "I want our address scrubbed from the internet. I want legal consequences for anyone who publishes photos of my children. I want them protected. Figure it out." Finally, the doctor returned. The spinal tap came back negative. "It's not meningitis." Imani burst into tears. relief so powerful it looked like grief. Louis felt his own eyes burning. "What is it then?" he asked. "A severe strain of viral flu. It hit her system hard and fast, which is why the symptoms were so dramatic. But with proper treatment, IV fluids, rest, monitoring, she should make a full recovery. We'd like to keep her overnight for observation, but I expect she'll be ready to go home tomorrow." "Can we see her now?" Imani asked. "Yes, follow me." They woke Malik gently. Louis carried him as they followed the doctor to a pediatric room. Inside, Zara lay in a hospital bed that looked far too big for her small body. She was awake, her dolphin tucked under one arm, an IV in her other hand. "Mummy," she said weakly when she saw them. "Daddy, I'm Malik." Imani rushed to her side, carefully hugging her daughter. "Hi, baby. How do you feel?" "Tired. My head doesn't hurt as much now." Louis set Malik down. He immediately climbed onto the bed beside his sister, careful not to jostle her IV. "You scared me," Malik said, his voice small. I thought you weren't going to wake up." "I'm okay," Zara said, patting his hand. "The doctors fixed me." Louis stood at the foot of the bed, watching his three favorite people together. Imani was smoothing Zara's hair, murmuring soft reassurances. Malik was telling Zara about the ambulance ride, making it sound like an adventure. And Zara was listening, smiling weakly, already looking better than she had hours ago. This was his family. These three people were everything that mattered. A nurse came in to check Zara's vitals. "Dee, you folks can stay if you want. We have a fold-out chair that converts to a bed. Parents often stay the night with their kids." "I'm staying," Imani said immediately. "Me too," Louis added. "Both of you." The nurse looked surprised. "Both of us," Louis confirmed. "We're not leaving her." The nurse nodded and left to get the extra bedding. Malik yawned widely. "You should take him home," Imani said to Louis. "Get him to bed. He needs rest." "I want to stay with Zara," Malik protested sleepily. "I know, buddy, but Zara needs to rest, and so do you. How about this? Dad will take you home, get you into bed, and tomorrow morning we'll all come back together. Okay?" Malik looked torn, but he was exhausted, his eyes already drooping. "Okay, but you have to promise Zara will be here tomorrow." "I promise," Zara said from her bed. I'm not going anywhere." Louis kissed Zara's forehead gently. "I'll be back first thing in the morning, sweetheart. You be good for the nurses, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." Louis picked up Malik, who immediately fell asleep on his shoulder. He looked at Imani. "Call me if anything changes. Anything at all. I don't care what time it is." "I will." Imani stood and walked Louis to the door. "Louis, thank you for being here, for being exactly what we needed today. I told you I wasn't going anywhere." "I know, and I'm starting to believe it's true." They stood there for a moment, exhaustion and relief, and something deeper passing between them. Then Imani surprised him by leaning up and kissing his cheek softly. "Drive safe," she whispered. Louis drove back to the cottage through the early morning darkness, Malik sleeping soundly in the back seat. He carried his son inside, tucked him into bed still fully clothed, and just sat there watching him sleep. His children. His perfect, precious children, who had almost lost one of their own today. Louis's phone buzzed. A text from Imani. "She's sleeping peacefully. Doctor says all signs look good. We're going to be okay." Louis replied, "You're all going to be okay. I'll make sure of it, whatever it takes." He meant it. The media storm could wait. The photographers could be dealt with. Right now, all that mattered was that Zara was safe. that his family was intact, and that when morning came, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, as a family, as they should have been all along. Louis woke to Malik shaking his shoulder. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom window. For a moment, but Louis was disoriented. He'd fallen asleep in Malik's bed, still in yesterday's clothes. "Dad, we need to go see Zara," Malik said urgently. "You promised." Louis checked his phone. 8:30 a.m. He had 3 missed calls from Imani and a text. She had a good night. "Doctor says we can probably go home this afternoon. Come when you can." "Okay, buddy. Let's get you breakfast first. Then we'll go." Louis made toast and scrambled eggs, though his hands shook with exhaustion. Malik ate quickly, too worried about his sister to complain about the slightly burnt edges. As they were getting ready to leave, Louis's phone rang. Marcus, the private investigator. "Not a good time?" Louis said immediately. "Make time. I found out who sold those photos to the press." Louis froze. "Who?" "A neighbor. Mrs. Patterson. See, 3 houses down from Imani's cottage. She's been taking photos for weeks, apparently, waiting for the right moment to sell them." Rage flooded through Louis. A neighbor. Someone Imani probably smiled at, maybe even trusted. Someone who had violated their privacy for money. "Can we prosecute?" "Already working on it. But Louis, there's more. The media attention isn't dying down. It's getting worse. There are reporters asking questions at the twins' school, trying to interview teachers, other parents. Someone offered a kid's mother £5,000 for information about Malik. Louis felt sick. What do we do? Get them out of Cornwall. Somewhere private, somewhere secure. I can arrange a safe house. "I'll handle it," Louis said. "Just keep working on the legal side. And I want that neighbor prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." After hanging up, Louis looked down at Malik, who was watching him with worried eyes. "Is something wrong, Dad?" Louis crouched down to his son's level. "Nothing you need to worry about, buddy. I'm just making sure you and Zara and Mummy are safe. That's my job now, keeping my family safe." "Are we in danger?" No, you're not in danger. Just some people are being nosy and I'm making them stop. Come on, let's go see your sister." At the hospital, they found Zara sitting up in bed, coloring. She looked pale but much better than yesterday. Imani sat beside her, dark circles under her eyes, but smiling. "Zara!" Malik ran to the bed, climbing up carefully. "You look better." "I feel better. Look, and I colored a picture of a dolphin for you." Malik took the drawing reverently. "It's perfect. I'm going to hang it in our room." Louis kissed Imani's forehead. "How is she really?" "Good. Really good. The doctor was just here. Said her fever's completely gone. Vitals are normal. We can leave after lunch." Imani's voice dropped to a whisper. "But Louis, I've been thinking. We can't go back to the cottage. Not with reporters potentially showing up. Not with that neighbor." "I know. I had a call this morning. I'm handling it." "How?" "Let me make some calls. I might have a solution." Louis stepped into the hallway and dialed his mother. "Mom, I need a favor. A big one." 2 hours later, everything was arranged. Louis's mother owned a private estate in the Cotswolds, secluded, gated, with security already in place. She'd offered it immediately. "Sure, bring my grandbabies here," she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. "Bring Imani. Stay as long as you need. Stay forever if you want." When Louis returned to Zara's room, he found Imani helping her get dressed to leave. The twins were comparing drawings, Zara's dolphins, and Malik's race cars covering the hospital bedside table. "Can I talk to you?" Louis asked Imani quietly. Outside, they stepped into the hallway, leaving the twins under a nurse's supervision. "I have a place for us," Louis said. "My mother's estate. It's private, secure, big enough for everyone. We can stay there while we figure out the next steps." "Louis, I can't just move into your mother's house?" "Why not? The cottage isn't safe anymore. The twins' school isn't safe. Reporters are already trying to get information there. Imani, we need to protect them, and this is the best way." Imani wrapped her arms around herself. "I feel like I'm losing control of everything. Of our home, our privacy, our normal life. Everything I built for them is just falling apart. So we'll build something new, together." Louis took her hands. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you're scared. But Imani, yesterday when Zara was in that ambulance, all I could think was that I almost lost her. That I'd wasted so much time, 5 years, not being part of their lives. I can't waste any more time. None of us can." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you." The words came out raw and honest. "I loved you 5 years ago, and I love you now. I love Malik and Zara more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And I want us to be a real family. Not just co-parents. Not just people trying to figure things out. A real family. Together." Tears filled Imani's eyes. "Louis, you don't have to answer now. Just come to the estate. Give us a chance. Let me show you that this can work. That we can work." Imani was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, we'll try. But Louis, if this doesn't work, if your world becomes too much for them, if they start struggling, we stop. We figure out something else. Their well-being comes first." "Always," Louis agreed. "Their well-being always comes first." They returned to find the twins playing a complicated game involving Zara's dolphin and Malik's toy cars. A nurse was watching them, smiling at their imagination. "Okay, babies," Imani said. "We have some news. We're not going back to our cottage right now. We're going to stay somewhere new for a little while." "Where?" Zara asked, clutching her dolphin. "At your grandmother's house," Louis said. "My mum, your grandmother, has a big house in the countryside, with a huge garden and space to play. She's very excited to meet you both." "We have a grandmother?" Malik's eyes went wide. "You have lots of family you haven't met yet," Louis said. "Grandmothers, uncles, cousins, everyone's been waiting to meet you." "But what about our toys?" Zara asked worriedly. "And our books? And my shells from the beach?" "We'll get everything," Imani promised. "Dad and I will go back to the cottage and pack up all your important things. Nothing will be left behind." "Can my dolphin come to grandmother's house?" "Of course, baby. Your dolphin goes everywhere with you." That afternoon, they left the hospital. Louis drove while Imani sat in the back with the twins. The drive to the Cotswolds took 2 hours. Malik asked questions non-stop. What does grandmother look like? Does she like racing? Will she like me? Zara was quieter, still tired from being sick. But she held Louis's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Are you sure this is okay, Daddy? That we're not bothering grandmother?" "She's been waiting her whole life to meet you," Louis assured her. "You could never bother her. She's already in love with you both, and she hasn't even met you yet." As they drove through the countryside, Louis told them about his family, about his mother Carmen, who was strong and kind and loved children more than anything, about his siblings and their kids, cousins Malik and Zara had never known existed. "Why didn't we know about them before?" Malik asked. Louis and Imani exchanged glances. They'd known this question would come eventually. "That's a complicated story," Imani said carefully, "and we'll explain it all when you're older." But the simple version is that Mummy and Dad had some problems when you were babies. We weren't talking to each other. So Dad didn't know about you, and you didn't know about his family. But now we're all together, and you get to meet everyone. Are you and Dad married? Zara asked suddenly. No, sweetheart. Oliver's parents are married. He says that's what parents do. Some parents are married, Louis said. Some parents aren't. What matters is that we love you, and we're a family. Okay? Okay, Zara said, but she looked thoughtful. They arrived at the estate just before sunset. The house was beautiful, old stone covered in ivy, surrounded by rolling hills and gardens. Louis's mother was waiting at the front door. Carmen Hamilton was in her 60s, elegant and warm, with the same smile Louis had. When she saw the car pull up, she pressed her hands to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. Louis got out first. Mum. Oh, my boy. Carmen hugged him tight. Let me see them. Please, let me see my grandbabies. Louis opened the back door. Malik climbed out first, curious and excited. Zara followed more slowly, holding Imani's hand. Carmen crouched down, tears flowing freely now. Hello. Hello, my beautiful grandchildren. I'm your grandmother, Carmen. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Malik stepped forward boldly. Hi, grandmother. I'm Malik. I like race cars and building things and dinosaurs. Carmen laughed through her tears. Ma, I like all those things too. And you must be Zara. Zara nodded shyly. Your dad told me you love dolphins. I have something special to show you. There's a pond on the property with a fountain shaped like a dolphin. Would you like to see it? Zara's eyes lit up. Really? Really? Come on, I'll show you both around. Carmen took each twin by the hand and led them toward the house, talking animatedly. Louis and Imani followed behind with the bags. Your mother seems wonderful, Imani said quietly. She is. She's going to spoil them rotten. They deserve to be spoiled a little. Inside, the house was warm and welcoming. Carmen had prepared a feast: roast chicken, vegetables, fresh bread, and a chocolate cake she'd made specifically because Louis mentioned Malik loved chocolate. Over dinner, the twins slowly relaxed. Malik chattered away, telling Carmen everything about school and his friends and how his dad was the fastest driver in the world. Zara was quieter but answered questions politely, even smiling when Carmen told her stories about Louis as a little boy. He once tried to race the neighbor's dog, Carmen said, her eyes twinkling. He was convinced he could run faster. Who won? Malik asked. The dog, by a lot. Your dad learned an important lesson that day. 4 legs are faster than 2. After dinner, Carmen showed the twins to their room. It was huge, with 2 twin beds, a bookshelf full of children's books, and a window overlooking the garden. This is the biggest bedroom I've ever seen, Malik said, awestruck. Is it really ours? Zara asked. For as long as you're here, Carmen promised. Now, how about we get you 2 ready for bed? It's been a very long day. While Carmen helped the twins with baths and pajamas, Louis and Imani stood on the back patio, looking out at the gardens. This is a lot, Imani said quietly. This house, your mother, this whole world. It's so different from our little cottage. Does it feel wrong? No. It feels overwhelming, but also safe, which is what they need right now. They were quiet for a moment. Then Imani said, "Thank you for today, for arranging this, for being there at the hospital, for being the father they need, the partner I need." Louis turned to face her. I meant what I said earlier, about loving you, about wanting this, us, to be real. I know, and I Imani took a deep breath. I'm scared, Lewis. I'm terrified of getting hurt again. But I also can't deny what I feel. When I saw you holding Zara in the ambulance, when you stayed calm while I fell apart, when you promised Malik everything would be okay, I realized that you're not the same man I left 5 years ago. You've changed. You've grown. So have you. You're stronger, more incredible than I even remembered. Imani laughed softly. I'm a mess. I've been crying for 2 days straight. You're a mother protecting her children. That's not being a mess. That's being a warrior. They moved closer together, the space between them charged with 5 years of history and hope for the future. Can I kiss you? Lewis asked quietly. I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not asking if it's a good idea. I'm asking if I can kiss you. Imani looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Yes. Lewis cupped her face gently and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and felt like coming home after being lost for years. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. I love you, Lewis whispered. I never stopped loving you. I love you too, Imani admitted. God help me, I love you too. They stood there, holding each other, as the sun set over the Cotswolds. Inside, they could hear Carmen reading to the twins, their small voices asking questions, giggling at the funny parts. This was what families sounded like. This was what home felt like. And Lewis had finally found his way back to it. Later that night, after the twins were asleep and Carmen had retired to her room, Lewis and Imani sat together in the living room. A fire crackled in the fireplace. Wine sat forgotten on the coffee table. There's something I need to tell you, Imani said suddenly. Something I should have told you 5 years ago. Lewis's heart skipped. What? Imani took a deep breath. When I left you that night, the night we fought, I was already pregnant. I didn't know it yet, but I was. By about 2 weeks. I know. The timeline. But what you don't know is what happened after I found out. After I called you 17 times and you didn't answer. After I flew to Monaco and saw you with that woman. Imani's voice shook. I went back to London. I sat in that tiny flat for 3 days, trying to decide what to do. And I realized something. What? That I was terrified you'd choose racing over our babies. That you'd see them as obligations instead of blessings. That you'd resent me for tying you down. Tears streamed down Imani's face. But I also realized something else. And something I've never told anyone. Lewis waited, his heart pounding. I realized that even if you rejected us, even if you wanted nothing to do with the pregnancy, I was going to keep them. I was going to love them enough for both of us. Imani looked at Lewis directly. I chose them from the moment I saw those 2 lines on that test. Even before I knew it was twins. Even before I knew if you'd be part of their lives. I chose them. And that choice, that fierce, protective love, has guided every decision I've made since. Including keeping them from me, Lewis said quietly. Yes, including that. Right or wrong, I thought I was protecting them. Protecting you, too, in a way. Giving you the life you wanted without the burden of fatherhood you weren't ready for. Lewis pulled her close. I would have chosen them. If I'd known, if I'd answered your calls, if I'd listened, I would have chosen them. And you? I would have chosen all of you. Would you? Really? At 29, fighting for your 8th championship, at the peak of your career? Lewis was quiet, honest with himself for the first time. I don't know. Maybe not immediately. Maybe I would have been angry at first, scared. Maybe I would have tried to prioritize racing. But eventually, maybe not that day or that week. But eventually, I would have chosen you, because you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too stupid to see it. We were both stupid, both scared, both trying to protect ourselves and ending up hurting everyone. So, what do we do now? Louis asked. We do better. We choose differently. We choose them. We choose us. Imani pulled back to look at him. But Louis, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we really try to be together, to be a family, you can't choose racing first anymore. You can't put championships above your children. I won't let you. And if you try, I'll leave. And this time, I'll take them so far away you'll never find us. Louis knew she meant it, and he knew she was right to demand it. I'll restructure everything. Racing will fit around our family, not the other way around. I promise. Okay, Imani said. Then let's try. Let's really try. They kissed again, deeper this time. 5 years of longing and loss and love poured into one moment. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. Stay tonight, Louis whispered. Don't go to your separate room. Stay with me. Louis, not like that. Just stay. Let me hold you. Oh, let's fall asleep together like we used to. Please. Imani hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Yes. They went upstairs to Louis's room, checked on the twins first, both sleeping peacefully. Zara's dolphin tucked under her arm, Malik sprawled across his bed. Then they retreated to Louis's room and climbed into bed fully clothed. Louis wrapped his arms around Imani, and she pressed her back against his chest, fitting perfectly like they always had. I've missed this, she whispered. So have I. Every night for 5 years. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, finally healing the wounds they'd given each other so long ago. And in the morning, they would wake up to a new beginning. A family, whole at last. Louis woke to small fingers poking his cheek. He opened his eyes to find Malik's face inches from his own, a huge grin spreading across his son's features. Dad, you're in bed with Mommy. Louis glanced down. Imani was still asleep, her head on his chest, her arm draped across his waist. Morning light streamed through the curtains, making everything feel golden and peaceful. Shh, Louis whispered. Don't wake her. She's tired. But why are you sleeping together? Are you married now? No, buddy. We're just... Are you going to get married? Malik's voice rose with excitement. Imani stirred, her eyes fluttering open. What's happening? Malik found us, Louis said apologetically. Malik climbed onto the bed between them. Are you and Dad getting married? Because that would be so cool. Then we'd be a real family like Oliver's family. We're already a real family, Imani said, pulling Malik close. Marriage doesn't make a family real. Love does. But do you love Dad? Malik looked between them with those wide, hopeful eyes. Louis and Imani exchanged glances. This conversation was happening faster than they'd planned. Yes, Imani said softly. I do love your dad. And I love your mom, Louis added. Very much. So you should get married, Malik insisted, his logic simple and perfect. That's what people do when they love each other. Before either parent could respond, Zara appeared in the doorway, clutching her dolphin. Why is everyone in Dad's room? Because Dad and Mummy love each other, Malik announced. They're going to get married. We didn't say that, Imani started. Really? Zara's face lit up. We're going to be a real family with a mummy and a daddy who live together? Louis felt his heart squeeze. Come here, both of you. The twins climbed fully onto the bed, snuggling between their parents. Louis looked at Imani over their heads. She had tears in her eyes, but was smiling. "Listen," Louis said carefully. "Mummy and I do love each other. And we love both of you more than anything in the world. We're figuring out how to be a family together. But marriage is a big decision that grown-ups need time to think about." "How much time?" Malik asked. "I don't know, buddy. But what I do know is that whether we're married or not, I'm not going anywhere. I'm your dad forever. Okay?" "Okay," Malik said, satisfied. "But I still think you should get married. Maybe for my birthday? That's in 3 months." Zara giggled. "You can't plan someone else's wedding for your birthday present, Malik." "Why not? And it would be the best present ever." There was a knock on the door. Carmen's voice came through. "I'm making breakfast. Pancakes. Who wants pancakes?" "Me!" both twins shouted, scrambling off the bed and running toward the kitchen. Louis and Imani were left alone in the rumpled bed, looking at each other. "That was intense," Imani said. "They want us to be together. Really together." "I know, and Imani sat up, running her hands through her braids. "I want that too. But Louis, we need to be smart about this. We need to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons, not just because the kids want it." "I want it," Louis said firmly. "Not because of them, although they're a huge part of it, but because I want you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you. I want—" His phone buzzed on the nightstand, uninterrupting. Louis grabbed it, intending to silence it. Then he saw the name, his publicist, and there were 17 missed calls. "What's wrong?" Imani asked, seeing his face change. Louis put the phone on speaker. "Tell me." "Louis, we have a problem. The story's evolved. Someone leaked information about Imani's past, about how you two met, your relationship 5 years ago, the breakup. They're painting a narrative that you abandoned her while she was pregnant." "That's not true," Louis said immediately. "I didn't know." "I know that. You know that. But the public doesn't. And now there's speculation about why she kept the kids secret. Some people are saying she was trying to trap you. Others are saying you paid her off to stay quiet. It's getting ugly." Imani's face went pale. "They're making me look like what? A gold digger? Someone who was trying to trap a famous athlete? We need to control this narrative," the publicist continued. "I'm recommending a sit-down interview. Both of you, together. Tell your story in your own words. Humanize the situation." "No," Imani said immediately. "No interviews. I'm not putting myself or my children in front of cameras to satisfy the public's curiosity. Imani, if we don't tell the story, someone else will. And their version won't be kind." "I don't care. My children come first. Not public perception. Not Louis's image." "What if we could do it without the twins?" Louis interrupted. "What if it's just us? We tell our story, the real story, and ask for privacy for Malik and Zara. We control the narrative once, and then we're done." "People won't respect that privacy," Imani said bitterly. You know they won't." "Maybe not everyone, but some will. And it's better than letting the media make up whatever story they want." Imani was quiet, clearly torn. "I need to think about it." "Think fast," the publicist said. "I can get you on a major network by tomorrow. Prime time. Millions of viewers. One interview to set the record straight." After hanging up, Louis and Imani sat in heavy silence. "I hate this," Imani finally said. "I hate that our private life is public entertainment. That I have to justify my choices to strangers who know nothing about what we've been through. I know, but maybe she's right. Maybe one interview, telling the truth, is better than letting lies spread." "And what is the truth, Louis?" "That I was scared. That I made a choice I'm not sure was right? That I kept your children from you for almost 5 years? The truth is that we were both young and scared, and we made mistakes, Lewis said. But we're trying to do better now. We're trying to be the parents Malik and Zara deserve. That's the story that matters. Imani looked at him for a long moment. If we do this, if we tell our story, we do it together. And we don't apologize for loving our children and trying to protect them. Agreed? Agreed. Downstairs, they found the twins eating pancakes with Carmen, chocolate smeared across both their faces. Carmen took one look at Lewis and Imani's serious expressions and immediately understood something was wrong. "Kids, why don't you go play in the garden?" Carmen suggested. "I saw some rabbits out there earlier. Maybe you can spot them." The twins ran outside, excited. Carmen turned to Lewis and Imani. "What's happened?" Lewis explained the situation, the leaked information, the media narrative, the pressure to do an interview. Carmen listened carefully, then said, "Do the interview. Tell your truth. But do it on your terms. And whatever happens, we'll handle it together. As a family." "What if it makes things worse?" Imani asked. "What if it makes things better? What if telling your story, showing people that you're real people who made difficult choices out of love, actually helps?" Carmen took Imani's hand. "You have nothing to be ashamed of. You raised those beautiful children alone when you thought you had no other option. That's not something to hide. That's something to be proud of." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "I just want them to have normal lives. I want them to play in the garden and go to school and not worry about cameras or strangers judging their mother." "Then we fight for that," Carmen said firmly. "We do the interview, we tell the truth, and then we demand privacy. And if anyone violates that privacy, we make them pay. Lewis has resources now, lawyers, security, everything you need to protect those babies. Use it." That afternoon, while the twins napped, Lewis called his publicist back. "Set up the interview, tomorrow night if possible, but we have conditions." "Name them." "No questions about the twins' daily lives. No photos of them. No discussion about where we're living or what school they attend. The interview focuses on me and Imani, our relationship, our mistakes, our journey. That's it." "Agreed. Anything else?" "Yes. We want it live. No editing. No cutting. We tell our story in full, with context, or we don't do it at all." There was a pause. "That's risky. If you say something wrong..." "We won't. We're telling the truth. The truth doesn't need editing." 24 hours later, Lewis and Imani sat in a television studio in London. The twins were safe at the estate with Carmen and a full security detail. Lewis held Imani's hand tightly as the makeup artist did final touch-ups. "You ready?" he whispered. "No. But I'm doing it anyway." The interviewer, a respected journalist named Sarah Mitchell, sat across from them. She'd built her career on fair, thoughtful interviews. Lewis had specifically requested her. "We're live in 30 seconds, a producer called. Imani's hand shook in Lewis's. He squeezed it gently. "We've got this. Together." "Together," she echoed. The lights brightened. The camera's red light came on, and Sarah Mitchell smiled warmly at them. "Good evening. I'm here with Lewis Hamilton and Imani Clark, and tonight they're sharing their story for the first time. Lewis, Imani, thank you for being here." "Thank you for having us," Lewis said. "Let's start at the beginning. Lewis, you recently discovered you have children. Twins, a boy, and a girl. How did you find out?" Lewis took a deep breath. "I saw them at an airport, completely by chance. I was walking through Heathrow, and I saw Imani with 2 children. And the moment I saw them, I knew. They looked exactly like me. It was like looking at pieces of myself walking around in the world. And Imani, what went through your mind when you saw Louis at the airport? Terror, Imani said honestly. Pure terror. For almost 5 years, I'd kept this secret. And suddenly, there he was, seeing our children for the first time. Let's talk about that secret. Why didn't you tell Louis about the pregnancy? This was it. The question everyone wanted answered. Imani looked directly at the camera. Because I was scared. Louis and I had just broken up. We'd had a terrible fight where he told me his career had to come first, that I was a distraction. So when I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks later, I tried to tell him. I called 17 times in one day. He didn't answer. The camera turned to Louis. Why didn't you answer? Because I was young and stupid and angry, Louis admitted. I was 29 years old, fighting for a championship, and I thought I was protecting my career by cutting her off. I didn't know she was trying to tell me something life-changing. I just knew I was hurt, and I didn't want to talk to her. So what happened then? Sarah asked Imani. I flew to Monaco. I used money I didn't have to buy a ticket. I was going to tell him in person. But when I got there, I saw him at a restaurant with another woman. He looked happy. Happier than he'd been with me. And I thought he'd moved on. That was a sponsor dinner, Louis interrupted. Nothing romantic. But Imani didn't know that. She saw what she saw, and she made assumptions based on incomplete information. So, you decided not to tell him? Sarah prompted Imani. I decided that Louis had chosen his career over me, and I didn't want my babies to feel like burdens to their father. I didn't want them growing up knowing their dad resented their existence. Imani's voice shook, but stayed strong. So I came back to England. I moved to Cornwall, and I built a quiet life where they could grow up normal, away from media attention and pressure. I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. Do you still think that was the right choice? Imani was quiet for a moment. I think it was the choice I made with the information I had at the time. Would I make the same choice now? I don't know. What I do know is that I love my children more than anything in this world. Every decision I made was about protecting them. And Louis, how do you feel about that decision now? Louis looked at Imani before answering. I'm angry that I missed 5 years. I'll always be angry about that. Missing first steps, first words, first birthdays. I can never get that back. But I also understand why Imani made that choice. Because I gave her every reason to believe I'd choose racing over family. Oh, and 5 years ago, she would have been right. What's changed? Everything. Meeting Malik and Zara changed everything. The first time I held my daughter, Zara, when she was scared and sick and called me Daddy, I realized that nothing I've ever achieved in racing compares to that moment. No championship, no record, no victory. Being their father is the greatest honor of my life. Sarah turned to Imani. You've been raising twins alone for almost 5 years. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't. There were nights when both of them were crying, and I was exhausted, and I felt so alone. There were moments when I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake keeping Louis away. But then, I'd look at them. These beautiful, healthy, happy children, and I'd know that I'd done everything I could with what I had. What do you want people to understand about your story? Imani looked directly at the camera again. I want people to understand that we're not perfect. We made mistakes, both of us, but we love our children fiercely, and we're trying to do better. We're trying to give them a family, stability, and privacy. So I'm asking, begging, the media and the public to give them that. Let them be children. Let them grow up without cameras in their faces. They didn't ask for any of this. Louis, same question. What do you want people to take away from this? That family matters more than fame, more than career, more than anything. Louis's voice was firm and clear. I've restructured my entire life around being present for my children. I've turned down races, uncanceled appearances, walked away from millions of dollars in sponsorships. Because none of that matters if I'm not there for the moments that count, for homework help and scraped knees and bedtime stories. That's what matters. That's what I should have understood 5 years ago. Are you and Imani together, romantically? Louis and Imani looked at each other. This was the question they'd debated answering. Yes, Louis said simply. We're together. We're building a life together, all 4 of us as a family. We're taking it slowly, Imani added, learning to trust each other again. But yes, we're together, because we never stopped loving each other, even when we were apart. Sarah smiled. That's a beautiful thing. So one final question for both of you. What do you want your children to know when they're old enough to see this interview? Imani spoke first. I want them to know that every choice I made came from love, that even when I felt lost and alone, they were my light, my reason to keep going, and that I'm sorry for the pain my choices may have caused them, but I'd do it all again if it meant keeping them safe. Louis added, I want them to know that I chose wrong once, but I'm choosing right now, that they are my priority, my joy, my everything, and that I will spend the rest of my life being the father they deserve. I promise them that, and I promise it to everyone watching. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, I'm present, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The interview ended. The cameras turned off. Louis and Imani sat there, a hand still clasped, having shared their truth with millions of people. How do you feel? Louis asked quietly. Exposed, vulnerable, but also relieved. We told our story, our truth. Now we can move forward. They left the studio through a back entrance, avoiding photographers. The drive back to the Cotswolds was quiet. Both of them were emotionally exhausted. When they arrived at the estate, Carmen met them at the door. The twins are asleep. They had a wonderful day. Fed the ducks, played in the garden, made cookies. They didn't even ask about the interview. Good, Imani said. That's how it should be. They shouldn't have to worry about any of this. Later, after checking on the sleeping twins, Louis and Imani stood in the garden under the stars. I have something to tell you, Imani said. Something I've never told anyone. Not even Destiny. Louis waited, his heart suddenly racing. That day I left you 5 years ago, when I walked out your door, I was already planning to tell you about the pregnancy that night. I had the test in my purse. But when we started fighting, when you said those things about career coming first, I lost my courage. And then, after I left, after I tried calling and you didn't answer, I made a decision. What decision? Imani's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I decided that even if you wanted nothing to do with us, even if you rejected me and the pregnancy, I was going to love those babies enough for both of us. I was going to be mother and father if I had to. I was going to give them everything, all my love, all my time, all my energy, and I did. For almost 5 years, I poured everything I had into them. She looked up at Louis, in tears streaming down her face. But here's what I never told anyone. I was exhausted, completely exhausted. Raising twins alone nearly broke me. There were days I barely slept, barely ate, barely functioned. But I kept going because they needed me, because I'd made a choice and I had to live with it. Imani, I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand. I don't regret it. Even the hardest parts. Even the loneliness. Because those 5 years made me strong. They showed me what I'm capable of. But Louis, I can't do it alone anymore. I don't want to. So when I say I'm letting you in, when I say we're doing this together, I mean it. But I also need you to mean it too. I need you to stay. Through the hard parts, through the boring parts, through everything. Louis pulled her close. I'm staying. I promise with everything I am, I'm staying. We're going to raise Malik and Zara together. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not even this year, but one day, I'm going to ask you to marry me. And I hope you'll say yes. One day, Imani whispered, I probably will. They kissed under the stars, a promise sealed between them. A promise of family, of partnership, of love that had survived 5 years apart and was finally whole again. Inside the house, completely unaware of the adult conversations happening outside, Malik and Zara slept peacefully. Tomorrow they'd wake up to a family that was stronger, more honest, and more committed than ever. A family that had survived secrets and separation and was building something beautiful from the broken pieces. A family that was exactly where it was meant to be. Thanks for watching this incredible story of love, loss, and second chances. We want to know, where are you listening from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to help us spread kindness and hope to people around the world. Your support means everything to us. And don't go anywhere yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another amazing story that will inspire you. See you in the next one.